welcome back to the IMNerd podcast. I'm your host, Frayway, and I'm here with my co-host, Kenny.
Woo!
And today we are going to be talking about, honestly, a bunch of different things, so just stay tuned in, because this episode is going to go all over the place. There's a lot going on in the world,
A general theme is like gacha games and Pokemon, right?
Yes.
I think that might be a general, but then who knows where else we go?
Yeah, who knows where this is all going to end up, because Pokemon just released a new trading card game that is on the mobile devices, right? And what's it called, Kenny?
Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Yeah, this shit's going to be huge. It's already big, actually.
It's already huge.
I think Silverman, so I went out to dinner on, last Sunday, and I was with Silverman, McCabe, Vinny, a couple other people, and they had brought up that, Silverman specifically brought up that they're already making, 10 million a day?
Yeah, so I read a couple things that apparently this game, now not all time, but apparently in its comparative time frame of how long it's been out, has made more than Pokemon Go, which to me sounds like it can't make sense, but I've read this in multiple places. I haven't dug in and looked at the financials, but apparently in the same amount of time in which this has been out compared to Pokemon Go, it's made more money, which just sounds insane to me.
Okay, well, wait, I can see that because it's only been out for like 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So if they're saying if you compare the first 2 weeks of Pokemon Go to the first 2 weeks of this game, that makes sense because this is an official game, right?
Yeah, this is,
Whereas the Pokemon Go game was something by Niantono or something like that. Like, that shit was not...
Yeah. The thing is, though, when Pokemon Go came out, because what you're saying is true, I just feel like the entire fucking world was playing that game.
I think in the first 2 weeks, it wasn't as big as it got, let's say, a month later. And I think that this game hasn't... Yeah. I don't think this game has reached its explosion yet, though. I still think that there are people...
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that this game, the new game, is going to still have a lot of room for growth because for me, speaking from only my experience with Pokemon Go, I became addicted to that game. I talked about it on this podcast multiple times, but I'll just kind of reiterate what happened to me. So I've never been addicted to a game where you can put money in, really. Or I should say, I've never been a person who did the microtransactions that you can like swipe your card and buy things until Pokemon Go. That's the first game that I ever spent hundreds of dollars on over and over to just like buy. I guess I was buying coins to buy incubators in the game.
Yeah.
And I was super addicted to that game. After work every day, I would come home, drop my bags, and I would go outside, which I definitely don't do now and didn't do that before then either. But I would go outside and I would just walk around for hours until it became nightfall, just trying to find Pokemon. It was ridiculous. And I was meeting all these new people. I was conversing with strangers often. Everything that I don't do now, everything that I'm super against now, random conversations with people I don't know, engaging with strangers, walking around outside aimlessly. Like, I don't do any of that shit. And it honestly seems crazy to me that I was ever into that.
It's really cool that they successfully pulled that off. If they just like supported the game's infrastructure and like continued to like, it was just crazy that they pulled that off. It's just a shame that that's kind of dead, and a lot of people have kind of turned. I think the game's still really big, but a lot of people have turned away from that game for a lot of issues.
Yeah,
that it ended up having.
I sunk a lot of money into it, and basically at the end of it all, I found a Reddit thread that said that you can get all of your money back because I don't know if people remember early Pokemon Go. There was a tracker in the early days where it would show you, if you're close to the Pokemon, it would become bigger or whatever. And you could tell like, oh, there's a Charizard somewhere. And you would start walking in a direction. And eventually you would be able to find the Charizard with the tracker. The tracker broke after a couple of months and people were complaining about it. This was the number one complaint. It's like, please fix the tracker. It does not work. I'm seeing Blastoise. I'm seeing Charizard as a shadow on the tracker. But then like when I try to...
Like an Ekans.
Yeah, it turns into Ekans, and then like it doesn't actually get bigger or like have any indication that I'm actually getting closer to the Pokemon that I want when I start walking. So you get frustrated because you're walking north for a while. Mind you, this is exerting your physical energy. It was also in the summertime for me, so it was hot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm exerting my physical energy walking down the street, hoping that this Charizard is going to appear, and then like it just, like you said, it just turns into a fucking Ekans, and I'm just salty.
Yeah, and dude, people were getting hurt too because people were like looking at their screen. Like people were just crossing the street. Like they were just crossing the street without looking.
Do you remember
people were getting hit by cars?
Do you remember the video of Central Park in New York where somebody screamed, "There's a Charizard!"
Yep.
And like literally the entire Central Park was running in one direction. Central Park in New York is one of the most famous parks in the entire world. And no less than probably like, I don't know, 80,000 people were running towards Pokemon at that time. That had to be probably fun, but also frightening.
Yeah.
Because it's a stampede of humans. Like you can get knocked down and you can get killed. Just that easy. Like I don't think anyone died.
Charizard.
But Pokemon Go was just the most absurd thing. And that's because I say this all the fucking time. Pokemon is the biggest IP in the world. Bigger than Disney, bigger than Dragon Ball Z, bigger than Naruto, bigger than One Piece. It is the biggest thing. There's nothing bigger than Pokemon. Not Star Wars, nothing. Like there's nothing above it. Like literally the number one IP. And that's been proven over and over and over and over again. Not Harry Potter, not fucking Twilight. There's nothing. So whenever they do anything, I feel like no matter what they do, it's going to just garner a lot of support from everyone. Yeah.
What they do just ends up doing well. And they already have an extremely successful trading card game. And then they made a mobile version of it. And like you said, in the first 2 weeks or whatever, it is done exceedingly well.
I can't believe that it took them this long now. I'm genuinely surprised because this option was always on the table. Hearthstone has been out for 10 years now, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Hearthstone's been out for a while. Magic the Gathering Online has been out for a long time as well. And those games have been raking in a lot of money. Even Yu-Gi-Oh! Got into the virtual. Duel Links came out, then Master Duel came out. I heard that Konami is raking it in from Duel Links and Master Duel, which makes sense because it's literally virtual.
Pokemon does have a web-based like trading card app. And if I remember correctly, like if you buy packs in real life, like if you buy a Pokemon pack in real life, it comes with a code. And if you enter that code into their trading card game web app, you get to open that pack in the game. And so, yeah, they have like
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, so they have something like this that supports the official trading card game. I think it does decently well, but I don't think it's very well marketed.
No, it's not, because I didn't even know about this.
Yeah, I messed with it a little bit. It's cool. But this mobile game version, it just feels, I don't know, it's doing something different. The UI is a lot better. I don't know, it has a much better community. Everything just feels, I don't know.
So for people who don't know, why don't we talk about what this game actually is? Because I'm sure there's some people who are living on their rock like I was until all of my friends started playing it. Like right now, you and Gary, aka OG, are playing it. Silverman is playing it. McCabe and me are both saying we're staying out of it because I have an addictive personality. I'd said at the dinner table, I can't add a single thing extra to be addicted to. I am already addicted to like Instagram and YouTube and things like that. If I get addicted, like I don't even have TikTok because I'm afraid of how addictive my personality is. And just like, I latch onto things, and when I like them a lot, I am willing to not only spend money on it, but time. And I just don't have the time right now to do that. So I'm afraid to just find another thing that I like a little too much.
Yeah, at least for now. Something that's kind of interesting about it is it doesn't demand too much of your time. Now, this isn't me telling you to play it, but just from my perspective of playing it, although I will try to get you on a video, I went out of my way to complete the Mewtwo deck just so I could play the Mewtwo deck with you watching.
Oh, I will 100% listen for content purposes. I will definitely be involved. If you need me for a video, by all means, because you also be teaching me how it works, and I wouldn't mind learning how it works. That way, I just have some context when people talk about it, because it seems like it's going to be a conversation that comes up with a lot of my friends for the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's once again the Pokemon card game is really big, and this is just like the Pokemon card game, but smaller in terms of like the way it works. Instead of going for 6 points, you only go for 3 points.
Yeah, let's explain exactly how this game works, right? So
it's a card game. Your deck is 20 cards, and
what's the minimum? And do you know the minimum in person? I know it's bigger than 20. It's like probably 60.
Your
maybe?
deck is 60 cards.
So okay, 1/3 of the size of a in real life deck, because there's a lot of changes between the real life card game that people play and this virtual version, including like actual game mechanic changes and stuff like that too.
Yeah, so some of the biggest changes are, so in IRL, your deck is 60 cards and your mana or energy is in your deck. So you have to draw, like if you play Charizard, you have to draw fire energies to attach to Charizard, etc. And in this game, your deck's only 20 cards, but energies aren't in your deck. Energies generate every turn, and you can just attach an energy every turn from like your energy pool. So they fix like the energy mana clogging issue where like sometimes you draw bricky hands because you're just like clogged on energy and stuff like that. They just take that out of your deck, which I think is an amazing change because nobody wants to just be like have a mana hand or energy hand and you're just clogged up and can't do anything. The other thing is like Yu-Gi-Oh, how the max amount of card you can have, like you can have 3 of a card. You can have 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons in your deck. In the IRL game, the max is 4. You can have like 4 of a Pikachu. In this game, you can have 2, which helps support the fact that the deck size is smaller. You have a 20 card deck. You can't have more than 2 Pikachus in your deck, for example.
That makes total sense to me because we said that the deck size shrank to 1/3, right? From 60 to 20. But then the actual max copies of a card went from 4 to 2, which is half. So you're still seeing your cards very often with those ratios because it's not a 1-to-3 ratio or a 3-to-1 ratio, in both ways, right? Like the number of copies of a card you can play is only going down by half, but the deck size went down by 66%. So you actually see cards kind of more often, and there's no actual, like you said, the mana you don't have to draw. There's no actual mana in your deck. I want to say one of my biggest frustrations, because I have played Magic for a while, and I've seen a lot of other card games like Kaijudo and Duel Masters and things like that come out after Magic, like years and years later. So they got to see how Magic operated and they got to improve on that, in my opinion, because my biggest gripe with Magic was always there were a lot of games that I played that were completely non-games based on your getting mana screwed, they call it, or mana flooded.
Yeah.
I hated that shit. Me and McKay both played Magic at the same time in 2010 for a while. This is when Jace the Mind Sculptor was legal. This is when Jund was a good deck. This is when, like, Blue-White Control has been good at various different points, but Blue-White Control with Jace, Sun Titan, Jace Bellerin, and the Mind Sculptor, those kind of cards, Spreading Seas. Like, I played during that time, if you know what I'm talking about. And there was like Mythic Conscription was a deck, like all that stuff. My thing is, yes, you could argue that in Yu-Gi-Oh! You also have non-games, right? You absolutely do.
Of course.
Especially in Modern. Like, I know in Modern, there's a lot of games that you sit down in front of your opponent and they just start playing and you can't do shit. You don't have the hand traps to stop them. So they build a ridiculous field and they tell you to go and then you lose the game and you didn't really get to play. And in Magic, you just kind of draw your opening hand and you literally cannot play. Like, you can't even have the illusion that maybe I might be able to break his board. Like, they just are playing by themselves. They're like, play a land, summon a creature or whatever, pass, and then you draw for turn. And like, you might have kept the hand with like 2 mana because you mulliganed twice or whatever, and it just didn't work out for you. And now you're like, well, I can't mulligan 3 times because there's actually stats out nowadays that tell you if you mulligan a 3rd time, your chances of winning the game is like 10%, right? Like the information's out there now. We live in an information era. So people didn't know all the math behind like how often does somebody win a game when they mulligan more than twice? And it's like, yeah, you have probably a 10% chance of winning the game if you mulligan more than
You draw 1 less card, right?
every single time.
Yeah.
So, like, your hand size is getting smaller and smaller every time you mulligan in Magic, which that's the illusion of choice. I do not like that. I like the mulligan system because they know that there's a flaw. You only need a mulligan system when you know that your game has an initial flaw in it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't like the illusion that you can keep doing it. Like, I don't think that's real.
You can't. Also, I mean, once again, it's something that could be fixed, I guess. I mean, Magic is probably too far gone at this point, but I think the thing that, like, Hearthstone has done and other games have done, and, like, what you could do even in IRL Magic, right, is if you had your deck, they made the deck size like smaller, and then you would just have like how Yu-Gi-Oh has an extra deck. I understand that this is a very different thing, but your deck could just be 2 decks, but it's registered as 1 deck. So like if all the monsters you play are like red and black, your mana deck is like a red and black mana deck. Right. It's like registered in that way, and then every single turn you, like, I don't know, you set it up and like you draw from your mana deck like every turn.
Yeah, because the lands,
like your normal draw.
Special lands are limited in Magic too, right? So if a land is not just, island or forest or mountain or swamp or whatever, if it's a real land, I'll call it, like Celestial Colonnade, Tectonic Edge, these are lands that actually do something. Like Celestial Colonnade is a blue and white land, right? Mm-hmm. So it can tap for either color, I believe is how it works. But it also has this ability where you can tap, I want to say, I might be getting this wrong because it's been 14 years, but the numbers don't really matter. You can tap some number of other lands with it to put it into play as a creature with 5/5 and flying. So your Celestial Colonnade land, right, this is when I played, so I know the power creep has gotten more ridiculous since 14 years ago. 14 years ago, Celestial Colonnade was fucking absurd. It was a blue-white land. You can turn into a creature, and it's a 5/5 flying creature. So my land is now swinging on you for a game, right? Like, I don't have any creatures in play. My land is attacking you now. That's obviously broken, but my point is you can only play 4 copies of it like any other card because it's not, even though it's land, it's not a basic land. And what I think
crazy shit.
What I think you're getting at is that if you had this extra deck that is just mana, those types of cards will go in that. There would still be a minimum requirement for how many lands you need in that extra deck over there or whatever. But you would basically like, we're not game devs or whatever, but you would get a card from that every turn to generate mana. And obviously it will be random because it will be shuffled every game with your main deck and like, oh, here's a Celestial Colony. But then sometimes it'll just be like your island, which is good. The other thing I want to say is that Celestial Colony enters play tapped. It's a land that comes in that you cannot use it when you first play it. That's a very main thing about it, because if you could just play it and immediately use it, that'd be fucking broken considering all the things that it does. It's blue, it's white, it's a creature, it's flying, 5/5. Like, it's insane, right? So it comes in tapped already, which means you cannot actually use it, but it is a land that will untap on your untap step on the following turn, which is broken. So if that was an extra deck, I think that would actually fix my biggest gripe with Magic. And then Magic will have a flood of players like me who would be like, I'm going back to that game, but I will never play Magic again, because the way I quit that game was I went to, I think, a GP or whatever, and I was playing and I was actually doing pretty well. I think I was like 4-1. I played against a really famous player, and I remember just getting mana screwed in one of the games. I won one of the games, he won one of the games, and then another game was just, I did not get to play. And it made me so mad because I felt like I had a chance to actually beat this guy, because like I'm a good player too. Like, I know how to play card games. I'm not like on his level in Magic. Obviously I knew that, but it's a card game. It has variance, it has skill. I could absolutely just get lucky and beat him, or I could just catch him on and off there or whatever. And that was taken away from me. I didn't even have the fucking opportunity because I just didn't get to play.
You can brick in any game. You obviously can brick in Yu-Gi-Oh! It happens all the time. But there is something different about bricking in a resource-based game, because if I just brick on my resources, it's because you need resources to play cards, and then you need cards to utilize the resources. So it just adds another level of bricking. Like, you can draw all your good cards, but they're unplayable because you don't have the resources to play them. Or you can draw all your resources, you don't draw the cards. And so, yeah, you can brick in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or, any other game. We're just using Yu-Gi-Oh! As the example.
Right.
But it feels different, because in Yu-Gi-Oh! At least all of the cards to some degree are playable, and you make your decision while you're building the deck. You know what? I want to play these cards that are bricks because they help utilize like whatever engine. Whereas in Magic, you don't have a choice. You have to play the bricks because that's the only way you can play the other cards. And that's the same thing with Pokemon. And I think this Pokemon TCG Pocket fixes that, because it takes the resource out of your deck and it just allows you to generate a resource every single turn. And it's cool because if you play a multicolor deck, for example, Dragonite is the only like required multicolor deck in the game at the moment. Dragonite is a dragon type card, but there isn't dragon type energy. The way Dragonite works is his cards require blue or water and lightning energy. So you can set your deck up to be a Dragonite deck, put whatever else you want in it, and then you can choose what energy generates from your pool. So if you're playing a fire deck, it'll just always generate a fire every turn. But if you're playing a water lightning deck, it'll randomly 50-50 chance generate either a water or a lightning every turn.
Oh, that's how that works?
Yeah.
And it just knows, I guess, by the construction of your deck, or you declare it or something? Like, how does that?
So both things can happen. One, when you build your deck, the game looks at the Pokemon you put in your deck and what energy is required to use their attacks.
Yep.
So if it sees a Pokemon that needs water, it knows that, okay, you need water energy. If it sees a Pokemon that needs lightning, it says, okay, I see you need lightning energy. And it'll automatically say, like, okay, your deck is going to generate these energies.
Nice.
And so let's say you added another color. So for example, a really popular deck right now is Weezing Dragonite. Weezing's just really good. He's a dark Pokemon. He's a really good tank. There's this card called Koga that puts Weezing back in your hand. So you deal a bunch of damage to the Weezing, and then you can use Koga to put the Weezing back in your hand. That way, when you put the Weezing back in play, he has full health again. And it just like really, it makes for an effective wall. But Weezing's a dark, and people are using Weezing to stall for Dragonite. And Dragonite needs a water, a lightning, and then 2 more energy to do his attack. So if you have all of that in your deck, the game will automatically make your deck a 3 energy deck. It'll make it water, lightning, and dark. But what you can do is you can go in and make it so it doesn't generate dark energy at all. This makes it so Weezing can never use his attack, but you can still use Weezing as a wall. You'll never get dark energy to put on Weezing.
Oh.
But you'll generate the water and lightning energy for Dragonite. So it's pretty interesting.
Oh, that's broken. So you can turn off the mana generation of a certain type that you don't want.
Yeah.
I like that. That adds a layer of skill to it for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Creative.
Because it changes what you can do with your deck, because 2 people could run the exact same deck. Let's say Weezing Dragonite. One person can say, I want the dark energies to happen, but then if you do that, you now make each energy a 33% chance of happening each turn, which can kind of really mess you up in terms of what energy you're getting from turn to turn.
Right.
But that person saying, I value Weezing being able to apply more pressure. The other person could say, I just want Weezing the wall. I don't care about him having any energy. I just want to play with the energy for Dragonite. So it adds, even if you play the exact same build, you can add a difference in terms of what energy generates, and that kind of changes how you're going to end up playing the match.
So I think every card game that has come out after Magic the Gathering that has used a resource system like mana or land or energy or whatever, Hearthstone, whatever they call it in that game, I think all of them have done it better than Magic the Gathering. Like Magic is goated for being around this long and still thriving and all that good stuff, or maybe not thriving right now, but because I know that right now Magic's in a weird spot where a lot of people in that community are not happy with the decisions that Wizards of the Coast has been making for Magic. But Magic has been around longer than every other trading card game that I can think of, and it's still around. And I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's going to be around to the end of time. I think it's one of the ones that's like Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh are never going anywhere. That's just
they're here to stay.
People who are thinking that they're going to go somewhere like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh's dead. Yu-Gi-Oh is nowhere near dead. Let's just be clear. Yu-Gi-Oh is nowhere near dead, and neither is obviously Pokemon, and neither is Magic really. So I think if anything, if any of them had to go, what would really happen is like it would be Magic. If in my opinion, I think Magic would be the first to go, and I think that what would really happen is that another company would buy Magic and then like morph it maybe, but I don't think that Magic would ever cease to exist completely. Like, oh, remember that game Magic from 20 years ago? Like, that's not a thing.
I agree with you. I don't think, at least in the current foreseeable future, those 3 games aren't going anywhere. But if one of them had to go somewhere, somebody might say we're crazy, but if one of them had to go somewhere, I think it would be Magic, only because Magic doesn't have as much mainstream broad appeal, whereas Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, mainstream-wise, is just more out there. Everybody sees you. Whereas like Magic the Gathering doesn't have like Lunchbox. You know what I mean? Like that.
Also, you're right about that, Kenny. The marketing for Magic is actually not good. I don't even know how is Magic marketed to a person who's never played Magic now.
I have no idea. No clue.
That's a really good fucking point. Yu-Gi-Oh has an anime, right?
Yep.
Yu-Gi-Oh has an anime. It's a popular anime. It keeps on changing with new characters or whatever like that for the new generation. So like, even though I don't like the newest Zexal or whatever they have been doing for the last 15 years, they've been doing a bunch of different things, right? 5Ds, GX, a bunch of different Yu-Gi-Ohs have come out over the course of the last 20 years or whatnot. And while I only really care for Duelist Kingdom and Battle City and stuff like that, the original series with Yu-Gi and Kaiba, that's the only one I really like. I don't really care for the other ones. But there has been one for every generation of kids. So every generation of kids has a chance to get hooked on Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I did as a kid. And Magic, I just don't know how you get a new Magic player to happen. Like, how does that happen? Pokemon is just Pokemon. So it's going to happen by virtue of it just being Pokemon. No one has to even tell you. A kid will just eventually run into Pokemon in their life.
It's got anime, it's got video games, it's got
stores. Like
stores,
all Pokemon centers exist in New York and in Japan. There's commercials for it all the time. The Switch, like literally, like you said, games. There's constant commercials and stuff like that have Pokemon in it as well. Pokemon is used for a lot of different things, so you'll never be able to escape Pokemon. And not argue that you never be able to escape Yu-Gi-Oh either. So Magic, I just don't know how and where it's being marketed. And I feel like without research, I'm not going to research this at all. I'm not going to Google it. I assume that with Lorcana and One Piece coming into the space and taking over more of the market, that Magic's player base is probably shrinking at a faster rate than any other of the big 3 trading card games, aka like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon being the big 3.
Once again, without looking at the stats, similar to you, I would 100% agree with that. Like, if I had to pick one that was decreasing, it would probably be that one.
Yeah, I just assume Yu-Gi-Oh this year in Japan had an 8,000 person tournament.
By the way, this Pokemon game, like last week had a 1,000 person tournament.
Oh, the mobile game.
Yeah, the mobile game. Like this Pokemon Pocket, TCG Pocket had a 1,000 person tournament like last week. And they have multiple tournaments every week right now. Like they have a midweek tournament, which has like a special rule, like no EXs or whatever, from what I heard. And then they have like a weekend tournament that's just like the real tournament. And apparently, you know, for the last, it's only been out for a couple weeks, but it's been getting like crazy high numbers.
So how does because 1,000 people, while impressive, obviously for a game that's been out for 2 weeks, Pokemon is going to be able to crush those numbers, but they probably cap it at 1,000. My question is, like, how does it? Have you played in one? That's the first thing.
I haven't played in a tournament yet, for multiple reasons. One, I didn't realize there was already like a community organizing tournaments with 1,000 people in it. Like,
is this official or is this like somebody else, like Smog?
No, this is all like community shit.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I guess what I don't understand, this is still, I guess we're still in the introduction part of this. The way this game works, if somebody wanted to hold a tournament, you're basically saying that like we could theoretically hold a tournament. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, we could. It's something that I'm interested in trying to do. Yeah, so when you go into the game, you go into the versus menu and you can do like solo battle or online battle. And when you go to online battle, you can either do random match, which you'll just play somebody randomly. And there's like two options. There's you're new to the game option basically, and there's I've played card games before option. You're supposed to separate the pools of players between like beginner and adept, let's say.
Right.
And then there's another thing they added called the event match, and this is kind of their version of a ranked mode. I don't know if they're going to add an official ranked mode, but they have event match, which is you do it, and then as you get a certain number of wins, you get rewarded with like a medal, like a 5-win medal, a 25-win medal, a 45-win medal. And that's kind of like the current ranked mode where you're playing to get wins, but there's not necessarily like an elo system. It's just like you play until you get however many wins is the highest level win medal.
Yeah, no one no one's platinum basically.
Yeah, no one's platinum. You just like get whatever the highest win medal is.
Gotcha.
And then there's private match where you and the person you want to play against, let's say I want to play against Gary. We go and we just like pick a password. We'll just say like IMNerd. So I'll go to private match. I'll type IMNerd. Gary will type IMNerd. We click battle. We'll find each other and then play each other.
And how do you find each other? Is it? I'm assuming it's very easy.
Well, we put in the same password. Like if me and Gary both type in like IMNerd, then we hit battle. We'll play each other. It'll just link us together.
But what if 5 people have IMNerd?
Then I think it'll just randomly connect to people.
Are you serious?
Just randomly connect. Yeah. If we had like 10 people all type IMNerd at the same time, they'll just all randomly get connected, I think, with people that all typed in IMNerd.
That's interesting. This is not really a big problem because you could just make your password not easy. But I was thinking like if you held a tournament, right? And I was, in tournaments, you typically would say, if you're going to put on a password, just make it this, whatever it is. And then for the IMNerd tournament, it'll be like IMNerd 1. Is that our first tournament? The password was IMNerd once for everybody, but then you can't really do that because then people. Yeah,
you'd have to do it like how I think War League does this. That's the one where you have 48 hour rounds, right? Is that War League?
Yeah, that's Peak of the Beak and stuff like that. Is usually you have 48 hours to play your round, and you schedule it with the person. You just say, okay, like you message. The people communicate. Humans just communicate with each other.
Yeah,
and
so that's how I kind of think they would work here, right? It's just like this is who you're paired with. You guys figure out how you're going to play each other.
Yeah,
I mean, like you guys.
The pairings are through challenge, and you guys figure it out. No, that's dope. I like the idea of there being already a scene where, like you said, you just found out yourself, but there's a scene already where people are competing, and that's going to be fun. 20 card decks. Seems like a really fast game. And it's only 3 prizes. It's half the prizes. I don't have any problem with that because it's not that big of a commitment.
Yeah, that's what's cool too, is that you can just turn it on and play it and like, play a game really quickly. You don't have to commit a large amount of time. You just get in, get out. And 3 points, but also EX Pokemon, if you kill an EX, you get 2 points.
Oh.
So that's how it is in the real game too. Because EX Pokemon have like bigger HP pools and usually more devastating attacks. So they're more powerful cards. So killing an EX card nets you more points. So if you kill 2 EXs, you win. Or if you kill 1 normal Pokemon and 1 EX, you win. Or 3 normal Pokemon.
In the real Pokemon game, now I am talking to you as though you play it and you don't. But if you know how this works, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that like you could possibly not have a guy come out and just lose by default.
Yeah. So in the real Pokemon game, and that can happen in this one, although it's less likely. So the way it works is you have to have a basic Pokemon, which is like Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur. Like you can't start with Charmeleon. You have to start with Charmander. And then like after Charmander's been on the field for a turn, you can evolve them and then evolve them, but you have to obviously draw whatever. But anyway, you have to start the game. You draw your opening hand. You get Charmander your opening hand. You put them on into the field, and then you start. If you start the game without a basic Pokemon in your hand, you have to mulligan. You have to show your hand to your opponent to say, look, I don't have a basic Pokemon, and then you mulligan. You don't get I don't think you get one less card. You just mulligan.
Okay.
But you do have to show your opponent your hand because you have to prove that you're not just mulliganing to get an advantage. You have to prove that you don't have a basic hand.
Right. Makes total sense.
If you have only one Pokemon and then you have your bench, basically, if your active Pokemon dies with no Pokemon on your bench, you just lose because you have no playable Pokemon left.
Right.
And that can happen in this game where if you only have one active Pokemon and you never get your bench established and they kill your active before you get your bench established, you can just lose without losing 3 points because you weren't.
That's like another win condition, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different win condition. It's harder to pull that off, though, in this game, though, because A, there's only 20 card decks, and B, in addition to whatever your basics are, you have a card called Pokeball, which searches your deck for a basic. So you have your basics, and then you have 2 more cards that'll search your deck for a basic.
Yep.
So that shouldn't really happen. Although there are some decks that if it happens to them, oh well, because there's this Articuno deck that only plays Articuno. It just plays 2 Articuno EXs and no other Pokemon, and the rest of it is all like trainer cards. And it tries to just like kill you and cheese you out of the game really fast.
Is it actually good, or is it one of those gimmicky things that it can catch you off guard and you can lose to it out of nowhere?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's not S tier, but it's decent. It's probably A tier.
Okay. A deck you need to be aware of, but
yeah, you definitely need to be aware of it, but it's not the best. The best decks in the game right now are Pikachu and Mewtwo. They're blatantly the best. It's Pikachu is considered the number 1 deck. Mewtwo is considered the number 2 deck, and Charizard is largely considered the number 3 deck.
So Silverman was explaining something about there's 2 broken ass decks that they win basically by flipping coins. Like the coin flip really decides if they're going to win, and there's one deck that doesn't really have that, and it's really, really good if it doesn't get G'd out of the game by the coin flippy decks. You just named 3 decks, and he named 3 decks as well. But he was saying something about like you flip 3 coins for one of them, and something happens when you. I don't know all the logistics. Yeah. I kind of forget because this is a conversation from 2 nights ago. But
so out of the 3 decks I named, the only one that really needs coin flips is the Charizard deck.
What does it do when it flips the coins? Do you remember?
So Moltres. What Moltres does, because it plays Moltres and Charizard usually, and then there's different tech choices. But Moltres has an attack that costs 1 energy, and what you do is called Inferno Dance, I think. And then you flip 3 coins, and for each heads, you attach a fire energy to one of your benched fire Pokemon. So you send out Moltres, you use that, and then you flip coins to add fire energies to your bench, mainly to power up Charmander / Charmeleon Charizard. That way Charizard can come in and do his like big ass attack. His big attack costs 4 energy, does 200 damage.
Oh my god!
And you have to discard 2 energy from the Charizard. So Moltres wants to build up the Charizard so that he has enough energy to do that attack at least twice. And the highest HP in the game right now is 190. So nothing lives Charizard's Crimson Storm.
Right, he just sweeps. That name is also broken as fuck. Crimson Storm.
Yeah, Crimson Storm is dope. But that said, that deck does, even if it like goes off on coin flips, I don't think it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think the Pikachu deck pretty much, even if it goes off on coin flips, I think the Pikachu deck just kind of beats it.
Yeah.
And the Pikachu deck doesn't rely on coin flips. Zapdos has a coin flip attack, but like Zapdos isn't really the star of the show. The star of the show in that deck is more so Pikachu. That deck doesn't really rely on coin flips at all, and I think that deck rushes down Charizard. And then Mewtwo doesn't have coin flips at all in it.
That might be the one he was saying that just does not need coin flips, because he said one of them just doesn't really do that, and it's broken, but the ceiling isn't as high as the ones that can just kind of like sack you. He said basically the other decks, they can just sack the consistently good one with coin flipping essentially, and I guess that's just true by virtue of like, a coin flip can just be insane, right?
The main coin flip deck is Water deck. Misty, the Misty card says flip a coin until you get tails, and each heads gives you a water energy to attach to your Pokemon. So Misty can get out of control. Not when I use her. I always flip tails on the first flip. But whenever I play against a water deck, they flip 37 heads, and I just get blown out of the fucking water.
Oh.
But the thing about Misty that's interesting is that first flip is a 50-50. So 50% of the time that card does nothing. But then the other 50% of the time it like gives you 37 heads and you die. But the water decks rely, I think, in my opinion, on coin flips the most.
Yeah.
But
I do trust your opinion a lot on Pokemon, because you've always been, in our group, the one who knows the most about Pokemon, at least the video game. The card game part, obviously none of us have really played the card game that much or really at all. But I know that because you're actually playing this game and you're researching and you understand how things work, like I trust you a little bit more just because you're more invested, where Silverman's plan is so funny. He's like the new Pokemon game was fun or whatever. I opened a couple packs, I got some good stuff. Vinny was opening it the entire time we were eating dinner, and he was just like on his phone and eating. Like, we were at an Italian restaurant, so the Italian food was really good authentic Italian spot in Philly called Giorgio on Pine is the name of the restaurant. Giorgio on Pine is the name of the restaurant. It's Italian. It's really good. And it was our first time going there as a group or whatever. First time going there, period. But Vinny was on his phone the entire time playing Pokemon. Opening packs. They said that he got one of the juice things. I don't know if it was I think he got a Mewtwo or something crazy. But he got like really good stuff. And Silverman was like, yeah, I got some good stuff too. I'm just kind of waiting until they monetize it so I can basically ship all my good shit and make money off of it. And I just thought that was so funny, 'cause that's such a Silver, like, that's so Silverman pilled that he's just straight about like, I just want to, he said, when they monetize it, I want to make sure that I have like a nice collection built up so I can start selling that shit. It's like, no long-term commitment to the game, not trying to become a Pokemon champion. He literally just wants to make money when he monetize it. And he said that they are going to come out with trading or something, which
in the UI, there's already a button that says like trading, and it just says coming soon.
Oh, so it's blatantly happening.
Yeah.
And
I can't wait for that.
Me, Silverman, and McKay were talking about how they could, because obviously people are going to sell Pokemon. That's just what we were talking about. We were talking about people selling Pokemon for profit, for money, for whatever, and how they might be trying to curtail that. But I don't really think that there's a way to do it. We were trying to come up with ways that they could do it. One of the things was like, oh, make it equitable. So you can't just like, you can't open up a new account and then Kenny says, all right, let me hook you up real quick and just give you Mewtwo and Charizard and Pikachu and whatever other broken cards that are kind of hard to pull. You can't just be like, here's all of these and you give me nothing. They might make it where if I open up a new account and I want your Charizard or your Mewtwo or whatever that's juice, I have to give you kind of equivalent exchange for it. And I might not, like, obviously I wouldn't have that.
Trade an EX for an EX or something.
Yeah, something along those lines. But even then, we argued that, like, sure, people will still just give you a shit one that they, like, everyone agrees, like, this is not a good one because there's definitely going to be ones that are trash. I'll just give you the shit one and you give me the good one and you give me money.
Yep.
So,
you just you give me some Bitcoin or some shit.
Like, people will figure it out. Like, people will find out how to make money on it. And so that is a bit of a concern for me. I don't mind secondary markets, but when the secondary markets on virtual games, that shit is always, in my opinion, a little sketch.
Yeah, it can be dangerous, but there's secondary. I remember back in MapleStory days.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah, there was a secondary market on MapleStory that went crazy. And like there was a whole website that was set up and like you could, PayPal people money or whatever to get their fucking purple surfboard and
$1,000 capes.
$1,000 capes, like all kinds of crazy shit. So I definitely think something like that will probably happen here too. Because like why wouldn't it? But overall I'm excited for it because I just want to complete some decks and stuff. And like there's a fucking Metapod that I need, right? I have one, but I need two of them to play like this Butterfree line that I want to play in my one deck.
Yep.
I only have one Metapod and it's a common and I just haven't packed another Metapod, but I have like 30,000 of everything else. So I'm sure somebody, like when trading is at it, I can be like, here, I'll just give you a bullshit and you give me like one Metapod. Like, here's a Caterpie, give me a Metapod. And like,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
That'll just happen. And I just can't wait for that to happen so I don't have to like hope to pull this goddamn common. I can just like, I just need this one Metapod. Here's a Caterpie.
Now here's a Caterpie. So how does someone who wants to play it for free, how friendly is it to me versus, let's say I want to play for free, but then you have this other guy who has a lot of money and he's able to, because I'm sure there's microtransactions in the game or whatever. Can you explain like some of that? Like, I know you probably play for free, I assume.
Obviously there's, what am I trying to say? Obviously you can spend money, right? Because that's how it is. What's interesting though, is that although technically like all of the other games like this, it is a gacha game. Something about me mentally thinks of it a bit differently. And it kind of made me rethink real life card games because like real life card games, I guess, are the original gacha games.
Yes.
Because this is a card game and the way it functions is like opening packs of cards.
Yep.
It feels more like playing a real card game than playing a gacha game, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Even though it is the same thing, because it's like, I don't know, it just is different. But the way it works is every day every 12 hours, you get a pack. They just like, you get a pack for free every 12 hours. So you can open 2 packs a day just for free. And
question, I gotta stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because we gotta dive into that. I want to know how toxic they are with this to get you to get on this fucking app. Do I have to open this app? And if I don't open it, I'll miss those packs.
I think so. I think if the 2 packs, no, you don't miss the packs, but if the 2 packs are stored up, I don't think the timer goes anymore. So you have to open at least one of the packs in order for the timer for the next pack.
So that's kind of my question. Let's say it's been 13 hours and I haven't opened the pack yet. I was like, oh fuck, I forgot I should have opened this an hour ago. Once I open it, the timer starts 12 again.
No. So, let's say
I want to know if I got to set an alarm to get the fuck out of bed to wake up at 2 a.m. to get my pack and then go back to sleep. That's what I'm trying to get to.
No.
Tell me if I need to wake up at 2 a.m.
No, in that regard, I think it's actually really friendly. So, for example, let's say you have 0 packs, right? There's a 12-hour timer. That timer is going. When 12 hours happens, you get like a pack stored. And then the next timer starts happening right away. So technically, you have a full 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
With like no punishment. I think if after a full 24 hours happens though, like, and you have 2 packs stored, Now I don't know because I never let 2 packs get stored.
Of course you haven't. Of course you haven't.
But I think once you have 2 packs stored, I don't know if the timer stops or whatever. But the thing is, nobody sleeps. Well, I won't say nobody. You shouldn't sleep longer than 12 hours. And so it's not that hard to just open your phone and boom, open a pack.
But see what you said, that right there, I don't like that, Kenny. I don't like that. You just said no one should be, but you should just be able to quickly open it. That's how they get you. You should be able to quickly open it, but then you're committing a part of your life to opening a fucking pack of Pokemon every single day for twice a day. And that's what I'm trying to just see like how toxic they are, because if they were really toxic, Kenny, they could make it where the second you open the pack, the timer starts anew, but it doesn't start until you open it, and that would be so...
No, that's not how it works.
That would be so ignorant to get people to just like, I need to be on this app every 12 hours. So you would have people setting alarms. You would have people literally, alarms going off. You would be like...
The game also, you can turn it off if you want, but if you can turn it on or off, you get the option. But you can turn it on where like when a pack is ready, like you'll get a notification on your phone. Like, hey, you can open a pack.
Yeah.
And you can just go open a pack.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get 2 packs a day. And so for the most part, you can just do that. If you just want to like build your collection, you can just open the 2 packs a day. Then there's like the little premium pass, which gives you 1 additional pack every day.
How much is that?
I forget how much. I think it's like $7. I forget. It lasts for 1 month, 30 days. Okay. Somebody did the math. I think it essentially comes out to be like, if you buy that pass, I think it ends up making like, because you get 1 extra pack a day, comparing it to the money in the game and how much money it costs to buy a pack normally. That premium pass, like I think buying a pack normally, I think is like $1 or like $1.30 or something like that.
Yeah.
The premium pass essentially gives you packs every day for like 30 cents, like 30 cents a pack or something.
So it's very good value.
Yeah, it's really fair.
I also think, so I will say this, because I used to be super against spending money on games, microtransactions and things like that. I think a subscription service though, like that, I like that. I don't mind that at all. And if I played that game, I would most likely be doing whatever subscription thing that you can do, like $7 a month. I think that's a very low amount of money for anyone to do. Like $7 is not usually going to break the bank for most humans. And if it is, you should not be playing this fucking game. First of all, you have bigger fish to fry, but
you have bigger fish to fry.
You definitely have bigger fish to fry. But I think $7 for an extra pack a day over the course of 30 days is a very, very good value for everybody involved. Like obviously the developers and everything like that, the people who own this game are raking it in from that, of course.
Yes, they are.
But like me, who just wants a dopamine rush and an escape from real life or whatever, just Pokemon makes everyone happy, hopefully. You get to just pay the $7 a month and you get 30 packs. But $7 for 30 packs, I don't think you get that value anywhere else. So
yeah, and if you think of it as a trading card game, it's like, what trading card game can you play? Well, you'll get 30 packs for $7.
Yeah, that's exactly. So that value is
crazy.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that you can buy. Can you just straight up buy cards that you want?
No. So you
can't just buy that Mewtwo. Oh, okay. Explain.
So you can't buy cards, but every time you open a pack, you get 5 like pack points. And then you can use those points to craft cards. So, which is kind of, so if let's say you're opening packs, like you're doing your daily pack openings and you're trying to find Mewtwo and you don't find it, eventually you'll just be able to craft the Mewtwo with the pack points.
How much are we talking about to craft this Mewtwo? A ballpark?
So the Mewtwo EX, I think that for EX cards in general, I think it's 500 points.
Okay.
For EX cards. And then and then there's like the alternate art versions that are like more rare. But that's just you being egregious. Like you don't, but
it
you
functions
can craft them.
The exact same way, but
yeah, there's Mewtwo EX and there's like Crown Rare Mewtwo EX, which is just like a more rare version, but it's the same card.
Is it glowing in the game or something?
Yeah, it's like glowing in random shit.
I mean, I need it. What do you mean? Like I fucking need it. It doesn't do the same thing because it shows that I'm rich and you're poor.
True.
Yeah.
But you asked how friendly is it in terms of like free to play versus people that pay money. Obviously, if you pay money, you'll be able to buy a bunch of more packs, and so you'll be able to build your decks quicker, right?
Yeah.
But I do think free to play is still really friendly because at the end of the day, because of how small the deck sizes are, they're only 20 card decks, and you get 2 packs a day. And when you first start the game, there's a bunch of resources that get you a bunch more packs. There's this thing called an hourglass. 1 hourglass reduces the charge time on the timer by 1 hour for when you get your next pack. And you do a bunch of shit to get a bunch of hourglasses. So you can, like, within the first day or two, you can open like 50 packs.
Oh, wow.
Within the first like day or two of playing. Now, after that, you're pretty much going to get slowed down to just doing like the 2 a day. But within the first day or two of playing, you'll be able to open a ton of packs.
Yeah.
So you can start your account and you can build like you'll be able to build the full deck of like whatever the best deck in the game.
I love the psychology of getting people addicted to things.
Yeah.
Because you just said to me that if I start today, I can open 50 packs. And everyone knows that opening packs has a huge dopamine rush associated with it, especially if you know, like you're looking for a juice card, like, oh man, I hope I get this Mewtwo. And when you hit that Mewtwo, I bet it feels so fucking good.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I think there's 3 different Mewtwo's EXs that there's the Mewtwo EX, and then there's like the Crown Rare Mewtwo EX. There's like full art, and then there's like immersive art. It's just all nonsense. But they did that for the Mewtwo, the Pikachu, and the Charizard, who are like the 3 title cards of the current set. But the immersive art one, I didn't know it did this. I pulled the immersive art Mewtwo and a fucking cutscene played.
Oh shit!
And like the Mewtwo like broke out of a test tube and like broke out of a laboratory and like went out into the rain and shit. I was like, what?
Not even went out into the rain.
So that was pretty sick.
I want the Crown Royal Mewtwo. That's the one that I like the most.
The Crown Rare, yeah.
I like that because I just imagine Mewtwo literally holding a fucking bottle of Crown Royale and like he just
fucking stop right
like
now.
I don't know what it looks like, but when you keep saying Crown Royal Mewtwo, I just keep thinking of Mewtwo holding a fucking
you were saying royal. I'm not saying
you
royal.
said that. You fucking said it.
I said Crown
You fucking
Rare.
said the Crown Royal Mewtwo, and I was just like, why is
Crown
Mewtwo,
Royale?
Why does Mewtwo have a bottle of Crown Royale? Like, I want to see this Mewtwo. He's fucking
got a little rocks glass.
Yeah, is he just like floating a glass with ice in it, and like the Crown Royale on the other hand, just floating them and mixing that shit in the air with psychic energy? That would be that art sounds amazing to me. So I want Crown Royale Mewtwo. That's all I want. Mewtwo's my favorite Pokemon. If people don't know,
that's why I built the Mewtwo deck. I was like, I'm gonna do. Because I recorded a video with Gary, the first little Pokemon video to go up on the channel.
Yep.
I recorded a video with Gary. I played the Charizard deck, or a version of it. There's like obviously variations of the decks. But I went out of my way. I was like, I'm going to make sure I build. I had most of the pieces for the Mewtwo deck. I was just missing Gardevoir. And so I spent the pack points to just craft Gardevoir. And I was like, when I do a video with Frazier, I'll use Mewtwo because Frazier and Mewtwo. You know, why would I not? I'm not going to fucking use Blastoise or something.
Yeah, no. Even though I do have a soft spot in my heart for Blastoise, because Pokemon Blue was the first ever Pokemon game that I played, and it's also the first game that... So I played it on my best friend Eric's Game Boy when I was younger. He's 3 years older than me, so he was older. He already had a Game Boy Color or whatever Game Boy it was at the time. He had that Game Boy, and he also had Pokemon Blue. And then when it was time for me, like my parents asked me, like, hey, which Pokemon game do you want? There's 2 of them. And there's one with like a red one and a blue one. And I was like, I want the blue one. And so we both ended up with blue. Instead of me being like, yo, my friend has blue, I'm getting red, because I just don't really like the color red. If you ever notice, I don't really wear red either. Like red is not a color that I've never resonated with the color red. Blue is closer to black to me, and black is my favorite color. Pretty much always has been. But like blue, just as a color, is a color that I like more. So I wasn't about to get red just to be the opposite of him. I just straight up got blue. Stop. We are not doing this right now. That story will stay in the fucking archives.
You told that story on pod.
I know. And that shit's for people who have listened to every single episode of this podcast, shout out to y'all. Y'all are fucking goated. Y'all know exactly what Kenny's talking about when he mentions red corduroys. Okay? The story of the red corduroys that I got for $10. Anyway, yeah, Pokemon Blue was the first game I played. So Blastoise was I also chose Squirtle. Squirtle's my favorite starter from Gen 1. And I always just loved, like, Wartortle, I think is the coolest looking middle evolution Pokemon or whatnot. Yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for Blastoise, basically, just to kind of... So if you had a Blastoise deck, I wouldn't be mad at it. But if you have a Mewtwo deck, I'm fucking orgasming because it's Mewtwo, and he's just so cool to me.
Yep, I do have a Mewtwo deck, and it is currently, like... most people are kind of considering it the second best deck in the game. Pikachu is considered the best right now. But yeah, Mewtwo's up there. Like right now, all the tournaments are won by Pikachu and Mewtwo. There are some tournaments that are won by like Venusaur or Charizard, but most of the tournaments are won by Pikachu and Mewtwo.
All right, I have 2 questions for you. I'm writing them down right now so I don't forget them, because I love it. I'm having such a good time with this podcast, by the way. I don't know if you guys listening are. This is great because I don't know anything, by the way. I know nothing except for what my friends tell me, and I kind of like it this way. I kind of like that I didn't research this before. I didn't watch a YouTube video to say like 100 things you should know about the new Pokemon game. I don't know anything. I'm literally asking innocent questions that I just do not know the answer to, and I'm hoping that my friends answer them. So in terms of this game, how many Pokemon are there so far? Do you know?
So
it sounds like there's a lot of Gen 1.
there's a lot of Gen 1, but there's a lot of mix of gens too. But the focus is certainly Gen 1. So the first pack, you have like Legend of Blue Eyes, Metal Raiders. The first pack is called Genetic Apex, which is a crazy.
Yeah, it is.
The first pack is Genetic Apex, and there's 3 versions of the pack. There's the Charizard pack, the Mewtwo pack, and the Pikachu pack. There's cards that are in all of the packs, but then there's some, like, for example, Blastoise is only in the Pikachu pack, Venusaur is only in the Mewtwo pack, and Charizard's only in the Charizard pack.
Right.
But in general, it's all the same set, Genetic Apex. In that set, I think there are 229 cards, and of those cards, I think 15 of them are trainer cards. The trainer cards at the moment are the gym leaders: Brock, Misty, Lieutenant Surge, Koga, Sabrina, Blaine, Giovanni,
Right.
And then Professor Oak. And then there's like Pokeball, Potion, Red Card. Red Card's interesting. I want to get your just naked thoughts on that in a moment, but Red Card's an interesting card. But yeah, so there's a lot of Pokemon. I don't know. I'll just ballpark and say around 190 currently in the game. And a lot of them are Gen 1, but there are, for example, Mewtwo, Ralts, Kirlia, and Gardevoir, which is the Gardevoir line, are a big part of that deck. There's like Heatmore, which is a Pokemon. There's a bunch of random Pokemon from all the generations, but Gen 1 is definitely the focus with the Gen 1 gym leaders: Charizard, Pikachu, Blastoise, Mewtwo, etc. So we don't know what the next set is going to hold, but it's definitely exciting, to wait and see. I don't know if it's going to be Gen 2, or if they're going to be this set is Gen 6, and then I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm super excited to see, because it's going to switch up the meta so much. Because right now, another thing, Charizard, one of the reasons why Charizard, even though it's considered the 3rd best deck, one of the things holding it back is that Pikachu is the best deck. Because Pokemon have weaknesses, right? In general, fire types are weak to water, but some have different things because... So, for example, all the water type Pokemon in the game, for the most part, are weak to lightning, right?
Yep.
But when they add Swampert's a water ground, they do this thing where they don't encapsulate all of the types into the game, but they represent them in some small way. So water in general is weak to grass, and it's weak to lightning in the video games. In the card game, for the most part, all the water type cards are weak to lightning. Swampert is water ground in the video game, meaning he's immune to lightning. So what'll happen when Swampert comes out is he will be a water type card that is weak to grass and not lightning, because they'll represent the fact that Swampert isn't weak to lightning in the video games.
Right.
So if you build a water deck, you'll now have a water deck where some of your cards are weak to lightning and some of them are weak to grass, to offset the fact that you just auto lose to lightning.
Right.
I say all of that to say, a big part of the Charizard decks is Moltres. Moltres being a fire type, they chose for him to be weak to lightning instead of water, because he's fire flying. So they represented Moltres as weak to lightning instead of water, which gives Charizard a bad matchup versus Pikachu, because Pikachu's all lightning, and Moltres is the main guy you want out on the front line to accelerate your Charizard getting powered up. And then your Moltres just gets fucking dunked on by the Pikachu deck, so you don't get a chance to accelerate the Charizard. So I say all that to say, Charizard could become even better if the next set comes out and lightning's not as prominent. Then Charizard might become even better than it currently is, and
what is it?
Various meta shakeups like that. What
does it mean in a card game if I'm weak to a type? Is it double damage?
It's not double, it's plus 20. So if I were going to do 10, if you're water and I'm lightning and my attack does 10, in general, if you're weak to lightning, it does 30, because it's just a flat plus 20.
Yeah.
So if I do 10, I do 30. If I do 100, I do 120.
Okay. So it makes really weak attacks ridiculous then, because something going from 10 to 30 is literally a 300% increase. Something going from 100 to 120 is only a 20%, literally a 20% increase, right? So that is not, that's interesting that 10 to 30 is a huge change. 100 to 120 is okay. I mean, I probably was already cooked from the 100, but the 120 could actually be applicable and, be the difference.
Yeah.
In the actual card game, I don't know if you know this, so if you don't, it's fine. Is it double in the actual card game, or is it the same way in the actual card game? Oh, it's just a flat 20 extra.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I never knew that.
Extra.
I don't know where I got double from. Double's wild.
That's important for breakpoints though. So even though it's way more damage, 10 to 30, which is very true, it is still important for certain breakpoints. So for example, Starmie has 130 health, and Starmie EX, and she's really good. She's a fucking really strong Pokemon. But she's 130. If you are a lightning type, and you only deal 100, you go from 2 hitting Starmie to 1 hitting Starmie.
Right.
So even though it's only a little bit more damage, if you can just one hit the fucking Pokemon, you one hit it. So
Yeah.
It does. It helps with like certain breakpoints. That's what makes some of the fighting type decks a little bit better because they do plus damage to the Pikachu decks, but they're still not that strong. But some people are trying to use.
Do you think they did a good job of balancing this game already?
Yeah,
Or is it kind of?
I think so. I think right now the strongest are Pikachu and Mewtwo. Like they are just the strongest. That's always going to happen. You'll
Yeah,
have a
every single
strongest
game
deck.
ever has had a tier list, and there's cream rises to the top, and that's just what it is. I'm not mad at
But
it.
as time has gone on, people have really experimented. Even though we only have one set to play with, people have experimented and made a lot of decks, and even made a lot of iterations on the top decks that are here. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, Weezing and like Weezing Dragonite. I play a Weezing deck, but I call it Team Rocket. Not like on the it's Weezing Arbok is what I play, and that deck's really fun. It's a dark type deck. Plays Koga for the Weezing wall, and then Arbok, and it's just a really fun deck to play. It plays no EX Pokemon, so you have to kill 3 Pokemon. Whereas, like if you're playing EXs, you only have to kill 2 Pokemon.
Right.
So you get one more Pokemon to work with, and it has a really fun play style. It also, in general, has a really favorable matchup versus Mewtwo because it's Dark versus Psychic, and Psychic's weak to Dark. So it has a favorable matchup against one of the best decks in the format, and it's just a strong deck in general. People have a really hard time dealing with Weezing, and it just applies a lot of pressure. So that stuff that has come out, Arcanine is another. Arcanine EX is a fire type that a lot of people completely wrote off. They're like, he's trash. Charizard's just way better. Like, why would I use Arcanine? But as time has gone on, in the recent tournament, Arcanine, I think, got second place at one of the recent tournaments.
Yeah.
Because people are realizing that there are like some really big upsides to Arcanine, and they're exploring some other stuff, even though people thought the meta was solved. And for the most part, they're not suddenly going to be like, oh, this is actually better than Pikachu. I don't think that's going to happen. But they're realizing, oh, there's a lot more decks, and there's a lot of innovation happening even within this very limited card pool.
That's really good. I'm glad to hear that it seems to be, it allows for creativity, allows for people to try things out and to push it. And it's only one set out really right now. So
yeah,
I'm not expecting the world, right? Like it's not fucking Edison format where there's 20 decks that can all top or whatnot, but it will get to a point where there's a lot more to offer and more creativity, more innovations to happen as it goes on, which is always, I mean, I think that's a good thing personally. So
yeah, I mean, they've already shook up the meta without releasing a brand new set. They've released promos. There was a Lapras event, and where it's a single player event, you just fight against like a CPU deck, and you get these promo packs. And the promo packs have new artworks of existing cards, but it has 2 brand new cards. That is a new Mankey and a new Lapras, which is really cool. So it added a whole new Lapras EX card to the format that people are using. But it also added this Mankey card that completely changed fighting type decks. Primate does 40 damage, and if he has any damage on him, he does 100. And people weren't really using him. But the new Mankey that got added, he does 30 and then 10 damage to himself. So what people are doing is like they're using the Mankey. The Mankey is able to apply damage to itself. Then you evolve on the Primate with the most minimum amount of damage you could have on yourself. And then you're just like 100 damage nuke with Primate, which is really, really cool. So even without them adding a whole new set, they added one promo pack and have already like added to the meta in an interesting way. So that's cool.
yeah, I like that too. I had a question for you though about something you mentioned a little earlier. You said that your team that you like to play right now the most, the Weezing team, has
Well, I don't play that the most, but I do enjoy that deck a lot. I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
If I did say I like that deck the most, that's not what I meant.
No, you might not have said that. I just heard you talk about it in detail, so I kind of interpreted it that way. But that's not even the point. What I was going to ask you, you mentioned how that deck that you play as one of your decks, you have to kill 3 Pokemon. Like your opponent has to kill 3 Pokemon.
Yeah.
You said that as though EXs are so normal that most games are like kill 2 Pokemon. Is that the case?
Yeah. EXs are in general they have they're so strong that most decks use EXs. Like,
okay,
that is very common.
You spoke about it in a way that made it sound like it was just so normal that most people have to only kill 2 because you made it a point that deck has 3 Pokemon need to die. 3 Pokemon need to die in that deck. So
EXs are definitely common. They are the meta. And I don't think that's a bad thing because it's not like there's only 2 EXs. There's Mewtwo, Pikachu, Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur, Machamp, Marowak, Gengar, and like I can go on. Lapras, Starmie, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres. Like there's a bunch of and they all add, and what's cool is that they're good in different ways. For example, Moltres is an EX, but he's not just like a super powerhouse. He's just a really good card. He's a really good support card that supports the fire type engine as a whole.
Right.
Whereas Articuno isn't necessarily a support card. Articuno's attack is kind of nuts though. it deals 80 damage and then 10 damage to the bench. So Articuno is just really nice. That's why the that Articuno deck I mentioned earlier is a thing where 2 Articunos, 18 trainers, because you just want to get Articuno as your first Pokemon, power him up, and then like you're dealing 80 damage and then you're damaging the bench at the same time. So it's just like you don't bother with any other Pokemon because you just want to get Articuno out as fast as possible and just start like ruining their life.
So Pokemon like Articuno are considered basic?
Yeah. You can just fucking summon that boy.
That's pretty broken.
I'm sure that boy out.
Because in my head, right, I've only ever played the Pokemon video games, so legendaries in my head are more than they probably are in the card games. And the card games are probably balanced in a way where they don't have like I'm legendary, I just destroy a Rattata. You know what I mean?
No, they destroy Rattata.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right.
No, they destroy Rattata, but they don't destroy, for example, Charizard. Like Charizard EX as a card on its own is stronger than Mewtwo. And Mewtwo's a basic. You can just pop Mewtwo down.
Right,
it's better than Mewtwo. It's better than Articuno, etc. But what makes Mewtwo better than Charizard is that you can just summon Mewtwo. Whereas Charizard, you have to summon Charmander, then Charmeleon, and then finally Charizard EX. So there's a ramp up to summoning Charizard EX. And so that's kind of how they balance it. Like the legendary basic EXs are really strong out the gate, and they can just like win a game quickly. And that's usually what makes them actually better. But if you get like Venusaur EX out, like so. To answer the one thing you said earlier, my actual most played deck right now is Venusaur EX, and Venusaur EX is very, very, very tanky. If I get Venusaur EX on the field, I usually win because unless I'm playing against Charizard, nothing in the game one-shots Venusaur, and he has like so much sustain that he just like I can usually just outlive the Mewtwo or the Pikachu and then win.
I have a question. What makes the Mewtwo EX so broken or whatever?
It's fast. You just summon Mewtwo instead of having to like once again like summon an evolution tree.
Yep.
It's fast. It has 150 HP, which is a really high amount of HP. It has an attack for 2 energy that deals 50, which is really good. And then it has an attack for 4 energy that deals 150, discard 2 psychic energy. And then the reason why I play is Gardevoir, which is a 3 raw. You have to do Ralts, Curly, Gardevoir. But Gardevoir has this thing where even if she's on the bench, she has a power she can activate. And it's once per turn, you can attach a psychic type energy to whoever your active Pokemon is. So you have Mewtwo active, Gardevoir on the bench. You get to give Mewtwo a psychic energy, and then once per turn, attach a psychic energy. So basically, once you have Gardevoir set up, you can do his 150 attack every turn because it discards 2 psychic energy, but you get 1 psychic per turn, and then Gardevoir gives him 1.
Yep.
So he can do 150 every single turn once you have like your thing set up. And then in the meantime, he's just really he's big HP, a lot of damage anyway. So that's what makes him really good. He's fast, he happens really quickly, and deals a lot of damage.
Makes sense. I mean, it's Mewtwo. Mewtwo should be broken, in my opinion.
Yeah. They did a really good job, kind of. It's actually interesting because like the 3 debut, like the 3 people that are on the pack, the Mewtwo pack, the Pikachu pack, and the Charizard, they are like the 3 best decks.
I noticed that really you named those. Yeah, that is dope. I like this. I like everything I hear, right? Except the fact that I would be addicted to this game. So that's the only thing that like, but I'm so intrigued by, you can hear in my questioning how like excited I am to learn new things about it because it sounds awesome. And I'm happy that people are adding something else to their life that makes them happy. I'm all for that shit. I think that we need all the mental health breaks we can get, all the dopamine rushes we can get, as long as you're being responsible with your money and your time, which I know that can be a hard thing. That's easier said than done, even for me. But as long as you can do those things, have fun, right? Like have fun with it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a problem spending money on it. Again, just be reasonable with yourself. And as a person who literally experienced like actual addiction to a gacha game before in Pokemon Go, and I did get all my money back, but like thank God I got all my money back because there's a world where that just doesn't happen, and I'm not so fortunate.
That doesn't happen. Yeah, the game's cool. It doesn't necessarily demand a lot of your time, which is nice. Like at least at the moment, none of the events are like you have to do it all right now in 24 hours or like lose it. There's like a pretty big time. Like right now, the 2 events. There's a PvP event and a PvE event, and both of those events last the entire month with like plenty of wiggle room.
Right, that's really good. What I was going to say is that Duel Links has these like I'm not going to necessarily blame Konami, but maybe I should. I don't know all the inner workings of it because I do not play Duel Links, but I know that Duel Links has these tournaments or these qualifiers or whatever that happen over the course of a couple days, like a weekend. I think it's just a weekend, honestly. And you have to get a certain number of points to qualify. And what that really means is the person who doesn't sleep and just plays Duel Links from the time they wake up until the time they pass out, or you literally have a team of people working on one account.
Yeah.
Like you either do one of those 2 things, you can't possibly qualify because the amount of points that's needed, you have to be playing the game stop. And I've heard people who've actually qualified for like worlds and stuff like that, because I'm around those people when I go to events, like, you know, the Justin Cottons of the world and all those guys who like actually play Duel Links, have accounts that have qualified to go to these prestigious events. They talk about what it requires, and I'm just a little sad by like how much investment and time you have to put in, even if it's just for a weekend. I still think that's very unhealthy to have people doing that. And like, yes, no one is forcing them to do that, but like you kind of are incentivizing it though. You might not be it's not gun to head, but you are incentivizing that when at the end of the day, someone who played for 48 hours straight over the course of that weekend when it opened, like if it's only open for 48 hours, the person who plays the most, and obviously winning matters, of course. Yeah. But like the person who played the most and is also winning a decent amount is just going to qualify. And someone who doesn't have as much time, because let's say they have a kid or a family or responsibilities or they work or whatever, they just have no shot. And that's kind of annoying. And I like the idea of it being over the course of a long period, like a qualifier exists over the course of a long period, much more reasonable. The barrier of entry is way, way, way smaller, and more people could just like actually have a shot, even if it's going to require like, damn, I was close, but I just didn't have the time to squeeze out at the end. But I had a chance, and if I got maybe a couple more hours, I got a couple more wins, I could have did it. Whereas right now, as it stands, you literally cannot unless you spend all 48 hours playing.
No life it. Yeah, it's interesting. Right now, you know, the game's brand new. Who knows what they're going to do at events in the future? But like right now, the PvP event, it lasts for the entire month, and it's just like you just play people, and every like certain amount of increments of wins, you get a ribbon, and you can like put that a ribbon on your account. And there's like a participation ribbon where it's like you just play a game in the event. Then there's like 5 win, 15 win, 25 win, and like 45 wins. And that's it. It's just like, and that's kind of like the ranked mode, and it doesn't really care about anything else. It's like, do you get 45 wins in a month? And then I imagine next month they'll just have like another one that's the exact same thing, but for the next month, and it's like a new ribbon.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I think that's cool. It gives you a reason to compete, but it doesn't stress you out where like you feel like you have to know life that, and like, oh, I got to get to diamond. It's just like, you're just like getting some wins for a ribbon, and like your losses don't really matter. I think it's a really good casual ranked experience for something like Pokemon that's meant to be for a very wide audience. So I like it.
I have some other questions for you. So have they started doing any nerfs yet or buffs?
There's no nerfs or buffs yet that I know of.
Because
I don't think there's any.
With virtual card games, one of the best things about them is that if a card is fucked up, because the dev team, the R&D, they're not going to get it right every time. We don't expect them to, right? If you played enough card games, you know that sometimes things get released that should never have gotten released. For example, in Magic the Gathering, there was this card called Pack Rat. It was, now Magic does a lot of drafting, so you buy, like, people will go to, this is back when not when I played, but this was a little after I played. This pack came out. People in Magic, they buy boxes and they draft. They like sit around. Everyone gets a box, I think, or something like that, and they open the packs and they build a deck out of what they pull. And it's organized. It's through a store. Every store does it. Every store that sells Magic has like Thursday night draft night or whatever. They all get boxes. They all open them and they build decks. And you know, if you get like there's always a juice pull, right? There's always like, oh, this card's crazy. If you pull this, like you probably just win your draft that night. You probably, because you guys, after you draft, obviously you play each other, and then the winner gets prizes, and second place probably gets prizes and whatever. And it's super fun because at the end of the day, no matter what, you get to keep whatever you pay for the box, basically. Yeah. So it's a Thursday night thing. Let's say it's $70 for a box. I don't know how much it is now, but back then maybe it was $70. Just using arbitrary numbers here. You pay $70. At the end of the day, you're still getting a box. So like you're buying a box, you get stuff, you play, and then you get like, and if you win, you probably get like another box or something, which is awesome. Pack Rat came out in one of these sets. Pack Rat is a 1/1, right? So it has one attack and one of the one life or whatever you call it. So it's 1/1. It costs to cast it. It's one swamp, so one dark energy, right? Mm-hmm. And it has a very simple ability that was overlooked by a lot of people until it wasn't.
Oh boy!
And when it wasn't overlooked, it was literally just like unbearable, unfair, ridiculous card. Also, I'm pretty sure it was either an uncommon or a common, but it definitely was not a legendary. It wasn't a rare. I'm pretty sure it was one of the rarities that is like not that hard to get. What it said though is tap, make a copy of Pack Rat. And so the first person who found this out was just like, summon Pack Rat, make a copy of Pack Rat, go. Then on the following turn,
make two copies.
Make 2 copies of Pack Rat. And then on the following turn, make 4 more copies of Pack Rat. Then 8, then 16, then 32, then 64.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
And so Pack Rat obviously was banned by a lot of, like, I think Red Cap's Corner at some point was just like, all right, this is a problem, obviously, right? Like it's a huge problem. It's a huge oversight by whoever made this shit. We have to, like, in order for drafting to be fun and to be playable, we have to get rid of this thing because it's literally not fun. People will mulligan down to 1 just to get the pack rat.
Yeah, fuck it.
Because it doesn't matter. Like, if I get it, I'll mulligan over and over. If I see pack rat in my opening hand, I'll win. Because starting with a pack rat and play is so ridiculous, you'll never be able to stop me now.
Yeah, every turn, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, because a turn 3 pack rat is like, oh, you could have a response because you have mana up and stuff. You can counter magic it, you can lightning bolt it, you can kill it and stuff like that. If I do that shit on turn 1, you're not winning.
Because by the time you can respond, I've got 7 packs.
Yeah, I have so many fucking pack rats out.
And just do whatever I want.
Yeah,
that's crazy. So at the moment, I don't know if there's anything like that. Like, once again, Pikachu EX and Mewtwo EX are considered the strongest cards in the game at the moment, the strongest decks in the game. But I don't know if they need to be nerfed per se, like if they need to have what the cards themselves do changed. I just think it's, as more cards come out, it'll happen. That said, that doesn't mean that can't happen, right? There can be something that's broken, that's overpowered, or maybe something that's underpowered, like, hey, I actually want, and they buff it. Right. I don't know if they're going to do that. It obviously can happen. It's a digital game, but I haven't seen them do that yet. It's still brand new. But we'll see what happens. They're going to add more sets and switch things up. And as you add more sets, you create more instances where crazy interactions can happen. And then maybe something unintended like that happens. Like, all right, we have to nerf the way this interaction works because this is not what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty absurd. So, and again, these stories, like, they're really old. So I might not be getting everything right about, like, all the magic stuff. I might not be getting everything right about some of the Pokemon stuff that I knew, but just kind of put it in the context that there were broken things happening and things that were oversights. And my point is, like, with virtual card games, you can literally just adjust them and send out the update to everybody, and you can't play until you update, right? Like, you can't PvP anybody, you can't do anything until you update your shit. You are not playing with anybody if you stay on an older version of the game.
Yeah, like, some people want Misty to be changed, because, like I said, Misty is flip until you hit tails, and you get a water energy for every heads.
Yeah.
And the thing about Misty is, like, she's very swingy, because you could just play Misty and nothing happens because you just flip tails and nothing happens. It wasted your supporter use for that turn. Or you could just, like, flip 37 heads and then you're like, now deal with me.
Yep. Yeah, and that's not really fun because it's like, all right, like, it can do nothing, but when it does something, it does too much.
Yeah.
That's just not it's kind of Dragon Turbo in a way. Like, it's not.
Yeah, yeah. And people want that change because some of the water does have an interesting concept. And this is kind of cool too, is like when card types have an identity, this is something that was true. Everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but people know I used to play the One Piece Treasure Cruise game a lot. Like, I'm playing it again now, but back when it came out 10 years ago, I used to play it a lot. And at that time, there was like different classes. There was like slasher, shooter, fighter, striker, like cerebral and driven, etc. Free spirit. Those classes had like ways that they tended to function, like archetypes, like the cerebral. A lot of the cerebral captains like to have like low HP and higher damage multipliers. You had to be at really low HP to access the higher damage multipliers and like do other stuff. Whereas like slashers tended to have like a really high HP. There was like different themes and archetypes within them. I know Magic the Gathering's like this as well. Like water, like green and blue and red. They have like general archetypes where I think like red, a lot of red cards will have like haste. So like they'll come out without summoning sickness, things like that. Maybe black has like a lot of like life point drain damage. I don't fully remember. I think water has a lot of healing, stuff like that in Magic the Gathering. At the moment, there's like a small hint of that in this game, whereas like Charizard, for example, and Charmander and Ninetales and Centiskorch, these are all fire type Pokemon. A lot of them have a thing where they do a big damage attack that makes you discard a fire energy. So you like burn your energy to use these big damage attacks. And then you have some psychic Pokemon like Alakazam and Jinx. They have a thing where they deal more damage the more energy your opponent has. So if you have a lot of energy attached to your Pokemon, my psychic attack deals more damage. Right. And that's a thing that's kind of like unique to like some psychic type Pokemon. Then like there's some water type Pokemon like Blastoise and Lapras where they deal damage for an amount of energy, but then they deal more damage if you have more energy attached to them. Mm-hmm. So there's like these interesting themes of like how they manipulate energy and how that affects the Pokemon. I say all that to say is like Misty plays into that a lot. If I get Blastoise out and my Misty fucking hits and I can like fill my Blastoise out to do like the big damage quicker, that's awesome. But I get Tails and I'm set.
Yeah, I think that there will be balance changes because every single virtual card game has them. Like I know Hearthstone will have problematic shit, and they'll just up the cost of the card or whatever. Now it'll have to be something that makes sense for Pokemon. Maybe something will cost more energy. It'll be priced out at that point. You know, they'll find clever ways to make things not as obnoxious. They'll lower a card's HP, make it killable easier now or something. I don't know. They'll figure it out though. All the numbers will make sense when they do it. And I don't necessarily mind that as long as they don't go overboard, right? Like Smash 4, where they just fucking Nintendo just was nerfing every single.
A lot.
I mean, every single week. I feel like a character that was, if your character was good, just know that they're getting touched in a week.
I'm still mad at that Captain Falcon nerf. Like Falcon,
what they do?
I just remember Captain Falcon was like high tier. He wasn't top tier.
He was a good character. Yeah.
And then if I remember correctly, I think like Zero. I think it was Zero. I think Zero like went to like a Japanese tournament and like won with Captain Falcon randomly, and like Falcon got nerfed like the next week. like the next week Falcon got nerfed.
I do not like that. That doesn't do it for me at all. Yeah, not a fan. Cannot say I'm a fan of that. So hopefully they don't go overboard. I don't think they will. I think nerfing in general, because even with Smash Ultimate, like they did a good job, I think, with Smash Ultimate of not overdoing it with the nerfs on the characters. I don't know if any character can blatantly say that like this character got killed by nerfing except Pichu. I think Pichu was literally not really that good. Pichu was also overpowered in the beginning of Ultimate anyway, though. Pichu was ridiculous. In it, like day one Ultimate, Pichu was fucking cracked out of this world. Then they went overboard for sure. Pichu is not played by really anyone. This past weekend, I know there was a major tournament, Watch the Throne, which is basically Summit. There was a Pichu player who was invited, not invited, but they came through the crowdfunding thing. So like people basically spent money to get this person from Germany who plays Pichu. He's really good, and I think he finished like 15th or something. So I do
wonder if like day one Pichu needed to be nerfed. Like I wonder if day one Pichu would still be considered really good today with like
right, because we'll never know, because the context of the game has changed so drastically now with the whole fighter passes coming out and all the other changes that happen throughout the course of the game. Which does suck that you'll never know if Pichu was actually that problematic, because people didn't have enough time to even adapt, because they just fucking got rid of Pichu altogether, right? And it's like, Pichu is just not played. So this one guy does play him, and I know we're off on a tangent right now, but this just to talk about like nerfs and how they can be a good or bad thing, or just the concept of nerfing things. They nerf Pichu real bad. No one plays the character. Void used to play it. Void doesn't even play Smash Ultimate anymore because they fucked this character so bad. And he was one of the top players in the first year of the game. He's one of the top players for sure. They destroyed his character. He basically quit, and because like I get it too. If they destroyed the character that you really resonate with in your core,
you put all your fucking time into it, and then like tomorrow he's unplayable.
It's really hard, especially because the Pichu nerf didn't come immediately either. It was like you said, he put a lot of time into it. There have been several events where Void was performing in the top 8 all the time, getting really close to winning events and stuff like that. I don't know if he actually won anything, because that was also when MKLeo was the most dominant or whatever. But the point is, he was a top player, and after a long time of investing and traveling and doing all this stuff to play Pichu and perform well, they just fucking destroyed his character. So he didn't want to play anymore, and he just went on to other games like Multiverses, where he's had a lot of success, and all sorts of things. But I just think nerfing needs to be careful. Buffing is, I think we talked about this in our group internally, but I wanted to kind of have this little conversation on the podcast. I think me, you, and Medina in our group kind of agrees with like, buff other things first, make other things better. Like characters who are awful and not played at all, because they can see the stats. Like Nintendo, whoever they know how often the character is picked. They know how often the character loses and wins too on their online thing. They can tell when a character's not good also, right? Like this character just isn't very good. Their design, their frame data, things are just bad. So buff characters to change things up, and before you just start straight up destroying characters and making everybody even by destroying them. I don't like everyone being bad. I'd rather people be like kind of average or better as the solution.
I agree. I think buffing is always better than nerfing. There's a couple examples I want to give to that. One is there's 2 hacks of Street Fighter 2, and this is like back in the day. People like modified arcade cabinets, if I remember correctly. And I think there's like, it's Street Fighter 2 Gray Edition and there's Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition. And Gray Edition like nerfed all the characters for them to be like really simple and really, really, really basic.
Yeah.
And that was like pretty much unplayed. And then there was Street Fighter 2 Rainbow Edition, which was a hack that made characters do like air, like Ryu could do like air fireballs, like Chun-Li could like fly, like all this crazy shit, right? And everybody loved it. Like everybody played it because it was just like crazy and nonsense, and everybody was buffed to just do nonsense. And some of the things from that hack got implemented into official Street Fighters later on in the future, and it was just really cool. So in general, people enjoy having more options and more fun things to do rather than like taking those options away.
Yep.
So yeah, make other characters better instead of nerfing other characters. Or if you're going to nerf, do it creatively. This is one of my favorite examples of a nerf, if I remember how this happened correctly. In Street Fighter 4, Ryu has Shoryuken, the Dragon Punch, and all versions of it were invincible, all the way like fully invincible, light, medium, and heavy. They made a change at one point, and the change was the heavy version lost its invincibility. Like, so the heavy version was no longer invincible, but it did a lot more damage.
Right.
And the medium version was fully invincible, but did less damage. So it created this thing where you could do the medium version for full invincibility, but you get less damage, but you get like this guaranteed invincible move. Or you do the heavy version, it's not invincible, but it's like a big call out and you get to do like a ton of damage. And I think something like that's really cool and creative. So they nerfed the heavy version of the move, but in an interesting way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that they didn't just blatantly make it unplayable, because it sounds like that's what would have happened if it was the Smash 4 route would have been make Ryu unplayable. Make the move come out 5 frames, like it would have took 5 more frames to come out. It would have also lost all of its invincibility on all 3 of them. And yeah, it would have just not been that good. So I like that they did find a creative way to do it. Like, you can still do an invincible move, but you'll be doing significantly less damage. Or you can do a move that has easier time to be punished, but it does significantly more damage. So you have to really choose in situations. And I also like that adds a layer of skill.
Yeah.
Having all 3 be fucking invincible, that is not very skillful, to be honest, because they are all invincible, right? Like, you added a layer of skill to that. So that is cool. Did anything happen to the light version, or is the light version just like the same?
I don't fully remember.
Okay, it's not important. I just was wondering because that was you didn't mention it, but it's not important to the story. Your point comes across completely with the medium and the heavy just being invincible versus not, and less damage versus more, and all that. So I get it.
Yeah. There's something I wanted to say, unless you, because it looked like you were thinking of something to say.
Yeah,
there was something I wanted to.
Yeah, we have red card, and we have the $700 limit thing that we'll talk about too. And I kind of wanted to go into those. And so
cool.
So
I'll real quick.
Yeah,
talk about the red card thing, because that'll kind of be related to the one thing I was going to add. So there's your like Pokemon, which are like your monsters, and then your trainer cards, which are like your spells, right? And trainers are divided into 2 groups. There's item cards and supporters. Items you can use as much as you want in a turn. So like potion is an item card. Pokeball is an item card. You can just like use Pokeballs, potions as much as you want in a turn. Supporters are generally thought of as like stronger cards. And you can only use 1 supporter a turn. So for example, there's a card called Professor's Research, which is Pot of Greed. You just draw 2 cards, but you can only use 1 supporter a turn. So there's another card called Giovanni, which increases the damage of your next attack by 10 points. So if you play Professor's Research this turn, you can't play Giovanni. It's not just like you can't play 2 Professor's Research. If you play Professor's Research, you can't play any other supporter card. You can't play Misty, you can't play Blaine, you can't play Giovanni, you can't play any of those cards if you've played Professor's Research. So even though it's a draw 2, which is extremely strong, it cuts you off from using all of your other like strong cards that turn, which is, I think, a really cool concept because it helps balance Pot of Greed.
Yeah.
There's item cards which you can use as much as you want in your turn. And so the one item card in general that I think is so interesting, because I think if this was in Yu-Gi-Oh, it would be so toxic. But in this game, it occupies an interesting place to me. And I want to talk about it with you and get some of your points. So red card. What red card says is your opponent shuffles their hand into their deck and they draw 3. No matter how many cards were in their hand to begin with, if they had 2 cards in their hand or if they had 7 cards in their hand, they shuffle their hand away and they draw 3. So what's interesting here is that, so if they have 3 or less cards, it's like not very enticing to use, even though I've had people use it against me when I had like 2 cards in my hand and I was like, I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah.
But if they have 7 cards in their hand, it's like really enticing because you make them go like really minus on their hand size. But it's a card I tend to not really play that much because I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it ever has that big of an impact.
I have a question too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I don't know this game at all. Like, I haven't seen it be played yet. Hand size. So I know that there has to be a hand size limit, right?
I think the hand size limit is 10.
On average, how big are people's hands throughout the course of a game? That's my main question. How many cards do you start with? I actually don't even know that.
I think you start with 5.
Okay.
You start with 5. And then you draw for turn. Hand size, it depends on the deck, honestly. So evolution decks, like Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, things that have to like go through multiple evolution lines, they tend to have bigger hands because they might like draw Venusaur before Ivysaur, and so they have to like wait to get Ivysaur. So like their hand might end up getting a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Whereas a deck like Mewtwo or Pikachu tends to like be able to play out their hand, and their hand sizes don't get as big. So it is deck dependent, depending on how big your hand will get.
Okay.
Another thing that has happened, at least to me, is like sometimes I'll have 7 cards in my hand, right? But I'm like kind of bricked. And so then they red card me and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Like even though I'm only getting 3 cards and I'm essentially going minus on how many cards were in my hand, I wasn't doing anything with my hand anyway. And it's like, you just gave me another chance.
Can you red card somebody immediately? Like, is it?
Yeah, you can red card somebody turn 1.
So they will go from 5 cards to 3 immediately?
Well, they'll go from probably 4 cards to 3 because turn 0, you have to put your basic Pokemon out onto the field.
Right,
so you draw 5 and then you summon a basic Pokemon. And so that'll bring you down to 4. But if in your opening hand you had more than 1 basic Pokemon, you could put both of them out. And then now your opening hand is only 3 cards.
Right.
So you can play around red card even on turn 0.
I don't think this card is very good. I think that you're not playing it because you're also aware of that. Personally, like obviously I don't have all the context, right?
Yeah.
I'll say that in Yu-Gi-Oh! There exists a very similar card. It came out and not everyone, but a lot of people thought that it was going to be really good. It exists in Edison format, I'm pretty sure as well. It is a psychic card. So it's like, it's funny because Teledad is really big now, and Edison format it just won the last event. And it got second at Niagara before that. So Teledad is like out here. But Teledad doesn't play it, but in theory it could, but I don't think it will. There's this card that says if you control a psychic, I'm pretty sure that's like the activation requirement. I could be getting this wrong. Don't really care. If you control a psychic, your opponent puts their hand back into their deck and they draw 3. And
yeah, so it's like basically
it's
very similar. Yeah,
it's red card. It just has a little bit of a requirement where you need to control a psychic. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember what this card's name is. So people who are listening to this, when you find out, just put it in the podcast discussion episode, like the episode discussion thing in our Discord server or whatnot, and I'll just see it. You can tag me if you want. That's fine. But that card has never seen the light of day. It reads like something broken in theory. Like, oh shit, if I draw this turn 1, right? Like I go first. And I make you shuffle in your 5 to go down to 3, and then you draw to 4. But if you really think about it, right, that card is a -1 for you. Like you play it. And this is best case scenario. Best case scenario is that you start turn 1, summon Kribons, and then activate this card. So Kribons is still there, right? It's not like it's a minus, but the card itself is putting you at -1. So you're down to 5 cards. Your opponent's going to shuffle their 5 in and draw 3, then they're going to draw for turn and draw to 4. So like they're going to be at 4 cards, and you're going to be at 5 cards, and a lot of decks still just function like that.
Yeah. And because like you're using the card.
Yes.
So
and the other part of it is the reality of it is when you don't have it in the most ideal case possible, which is turn 1, I went first and I did this. If you do it any later than that, it is just fucking bad. It is literally just bad. If you do it, unless you're playing against Dragon Turbo, where they did the super rejuvenation thing and they fucking went through their entire deck and they crafted this perfect hand of 6 cards. Unless it's Dragon Turbo, most decks, if you do that to them in the middle of the game, they just won't have enough cards to justify the minus to yourself. And also, it doesn't stop anything from killing you or whatnot. Like if there's cards on the field attacking you, this card's awful. Like could you imagine drawing? It's like how we draw Trap Dust Shoot after you're getting beat down. Your opponent has 2 cards in hand. You're like, fuck, that's a Dark Arm or that's a Caius. I need something to answer that, and you draw that card. It's really bad. It's not practical. It's a gimmick. And when you said red card, my mind immediately thought about this psychic card from a long time ago, and it never saw play. And it's just not a good card.
Yeah, I think right now people are playing it because we only have 1 set, and so it's like it's a card to put into your deck.
Yep.
Like, it's good enough because we only have 1 set. There's only so many things you can fit into your deck at the moment.
Yeah, and it can catch people in Pokemon off guard. I can see, like you said, the EX decks or the evolution decks. Yeah, the evolution decks specifically, they hold cards a little longer sometimes because of the way they need to draw their cards in a certain order. So they just have dead cards in their hand, and you could fuck them up real bad. So I get it, but like you said, I think that it'll just fall out of favor.
Yeah, like I've lost to red card here and there because like it'll like shuffle away my evolution and then like I don't redraw it.
Yep.
So I've definitely lost some games to getting red card, but I feel like most games where somebody has red card at me, it's done literally nothing. It's just like it changed what was in my hand, and like I just kept playing anyway. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't do anything.
It's also one of those things where again, I assume that Pokemon has the same exact issue where if you're losing the game already or you're kind of being pressured, maybe not even losing, but you're being pressured by a Mewtwo or a Charizard or a Pikachu or whatever the hell, and you draw that, I don't imagine that that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, just like what the fuck? I'd rather like some people are like taking potion out of their deck for red card or something, and
What's potion do?
potion just heals 20, which
Okay.
doesn't sound like a lot, but 20 HP is the difference between it can be like if Mewtwo does 150 and you're at 140, 20 HP means Mewtwo doesn't kill you. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's just really like it can be really good. It can just get you over certain breakpoints and make it so that a 2-hit KO is a 3-hit KO or whatever.
I have a question. Are there crits in this game?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, every damage is just what it is. That's why Arcanine has been getting a bit more popularity. The reason why people didn't like Arcanine is he has less HP than Charizard, his attack is weaker than Charizard's, and his attack deals damage to himself.
Yep.
He does 120, and then I think he does like 20 to himself. So everybody was like, well, I mean, Charizard has 180 HP and he deals 200. Why would I use Arcanine? The reason why Arcanine is getting a bit more popularity is he happens quicker because you just Growlithe Arcanine instead of Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard. So Arcanine happens faster and he deals 120, which is exactly how much HP Pikachu EX has. So Arcanine can just one-shot Pikachu,
Yeah.
and Arcanine comes out quick enough where you just like summon Arcanine, kill Pikachu, and that's like really good. Whereas Pikachu's max damage is 90. So Pikachu can't one-shot Arcanine, but Arcanine can one-shot Pikachu.
Yep.
Pikachu EX is still a better deck, but people realize like, oh, Arcanine actually does have merit. It's a really fast deck that can deal with Pikachu. So
Yeah, it's something. And that's how metas evolve, right? Like that's a good thing. That is not it's not right now, again, one set. It's not the best check, but it is somewhat of a check to Pikachu. It's like, this is something that Pikachu probably doesn't want to play against in a bracket.
yeah.
Because you might fuck around and find out. You might run into a Arcanine player who happens to be drawing kind of nice, and you get shit on. So
Yeah. In general, from what I've heard, once again, I haven't had a chance to play in a tournament yet, but I do plan on trying to play in some tournaments. From what I've gathered, there seems to be like a pseudo triangle happening where Pikachu kind of rolls Charizard. Charizard doesn't roll Mewtwo, but Charizard likes fighting Mewtwo.
Yep.
Charizard deck into Mewtwo tends to like probably favor Charizard, but Mewtwo can still do just fine. And Mewtwo tends to like beat Pikachu. So like it's like Mewtwo beats Pikachu, Pikachu beats Charizard, Charizard beats Mewtwo is like a soft triangle that's there. It's not perfect. It's not like they all hard counter each other, but there is like a slight advantage in those directions, which is kind of interesting.
okay. Yeah, that's totally fair. I like that there is somewhat of a this checks this checks that, whatnot. Checks and balances. You need that.
Yeah.
Otherwise you end up with, and there will be, you end up with a one deck format type of thing.
Yeah, eventually we'll get a set and there'll be one deck that is just like, this deck is crazy. I
Yeah.
can't wait for the next set to come
It
out.
inevitably happens to every card game that has ever existed. No matter how good the balancing team is, there will come a day, and they can decide to fix it sooner than later, but there will come a day where a deck comes out and it's like, this shit is blatantly so much better than every other deck that you could possibly play, that there's no reason to really play anything else unless you just want to have fun.
Yep.
So, and that's fine.
Gonna happen.
Okay. So yeah, I think we talked about everything on my list. We talked about nerfs. We talked about mana.
I know you wanted to talk about like the spending limit.
So yes, apparently, I was out to dinner at the Italian restaurant, right? So bringing this back, I'm painting the picture for you guys. I'm with Silverman, I'm with McCabe, two of my best friends in the world, and two of the funniest people in the world. One of them unintentionally, and one of them intentionally. And you can determine which is which. But so we're sitting there eating, and right now just the bread has come out with the oil. You know how Italian restaurants always give you bread, and they give you like that little plate with the oil in it, and then you put that darker stuff in it. I forget what that is, but we have that.
Yeah.
So we're eating that. We're all hungry as fuck. McCabe comes in a little later than everybody else, and Silverman's like, "Yeah, so the new Pokemon game, it's whatever. Like I'm trying to make some money off of it when they open up the trading thing." Just building my account to make money. And I was like, by the way, can you put money into this game? He's like, yeah, you can. And I was like, oh, so they probably have like whales and shit like that. People who just have like the craziest accounts. And he was like, yeah, but there is a spending limit. And so McCabe, like I said, McCabe came in later. So he is stuffing his mouth with bread. Like he literally has bread in his, all in his mouth. Right. And I'm like, well, what's the spending limit? And Silverman goes, it's 700 a day. And McCabe goes, what? The way he said what, though, when I tell you, it was the most annoyed, disgusted, working class what? He was like, what? So mind you, his mouth is full of bread. Like he can't, you can, the what was muffled. So he almost like fucking choked. And then I said to Silverman, I said, 700 a day. So I look at McCabe, and McCabe was like, what the fuck is the point? Like, Like, he's like, so that can slow me down for what, a week of my life? Like, until I'm on zero? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, that's not, 700 a day is not a real, that's not real. Like, who has 700 a day to max out their Pokemon account? That is the most unrealistic fucking stop I've ever heard of in my life. So he was annoyed. Like, McKay was fully annoyed, and that shit had me dying because his initial reaction to it was so annoyed and disgusted. Because, like, the thought of putting on such weak guardrails is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, did Silverman ever clarify?
No, he did not. Can you please?
So, what Silverman said is half true. It's 700, if I remember correctly, it's 700 Pokegold a day, which I think is achieved with like $100.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact thing, but it's probably I think in terms of real world money, I think the limit is somewhere between $100 and $200.
Okay, a day.
And that ends up equaling something like 700 Pokegold.
Okay.
That you can use.
Well, that makes obviously that makes a huge difference because that's literally 700% if it's $100 a day or whatever. But the story being told as $700 a day is so fucking unhinged because again, who the fuck has $700 a day? I would be broke so fast.
Crazy.
That should have me dying. Yeah, no, I couldn't. That's why when he said it, McKay was just so bread in the mouth, so annoyed. It's like, what?
That's really funny.
So you mean to tell me I could crash out for a week and then I'm broke? Like what are we talking about? So
I'm just passed out.
He's just like I could just fucking crash out for 1 week. Like I don't have. How much money do you think we have?
Shit.
How much money do you think we have? I work. Like I fucking go to work.
That is crazy. Yeah,
he was super annoyed.
There's a spending limit. It is what it is. I think that it's overall probably a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I 100%
700. If it was capped at 7, I'd agree. Like, what is the point? But yeah, like I said, it's somewhere between. I think it's like 150 or something. I think that's way better than obviously the one that isn't real at all. Yeah, because that caps you. What that does is it helps slow your impulse buying because it lets you impulse buy the 150, and you're doing it. That makes it so that you can't spend more money until like tomorrow.
Yeah,
and then
which is something.
By tomorrow, you might not have the impulse to like spend the money again to like get more packs.
Because the reality is people are unreasonable and irresponsible with their money.
Yeah.
And we all have been a victim of just our own impulse buying. We've all have experienced that by now, I'm sure. I don't know anyone who's so frugal that they haven't made a purchase that they kind of regret, buyer's remorse. Everyone has probably bought something that they're like, probably shouldn't have bought that. I probably spent a little bit too much money on that, but I had to have it. And again, I'm all for a nice, expensive, ridiculous purchase every once in a while, because at the end of the day, we are all going to die. And as morbid as that is, the reality is we're all going to die at some point. I do not believe in working until you're 70 or whatever years old and then retiring and then enjoying your money when you're fucking 70. I just personally do not believe that. I'm not a financial consultant, so don't take anything I say as like financial advice. But personally, I like to have fun with my money while I am still young and active and able to do things and fun things and enjoy things. I don't believe that I could die literally tomorrow. I could die next week. I could die next year. And if I spend my whole life just working and saving money or investing my money and never really enjoying it or doing anything fun with it, then all that money is just left behind and I didn't really get to do anything with it, which is really unfortunate to live your life to make money and not make money to live your life. So that's how I feel. And I've felt like this for the last several years, which is why my outlook on things, this is why you guys see me at every single YCS. Like I have not missed a single one this year in America. Like I've gone to every single one from starting at Vegas in February all the way up to what was the last one, Niagara Falls in October, and I'll be in Anaheim in December. That brings me joy. I'm fortunate enough to have a job that allows me to do that. And yeah, that's just something that really brings me a lot of joy is basically what I'm saying about that. But I know that people don't have the ability sometimes to hold back, and them putting that guardrail on at $150 or whatever the number is, arbitrary number, but it's low enough to where it's reasonable for people who just have who just work. Like you work and you have a regular job. You're not a fucking, I'm not rich either. I know I made a comment earlier in this podcast. I hope that didn't get misconstrued when I said I need the one crazy Mewtwo that does all the shit when you buy it or when you have it.
Yeah.
I'm not actually rich at all.
Your tone of voice was obviously. I think it should be obvious.
Like when I said I'm rich and you're poor, I need it for that reason. That's obviously a joke. I hope people don't think like I live in an apartment. I have a very humble apartment. It's not like some crazy luxury fucking $3,000 a month apartment or anything like that. Like I do not drive a Mercedes or a Range Rover or a Bentley.
You don't have a car.
Yeah,
I don't even think you have a license.
I don't have either of those things. I don't drive. I do not drive. Now, I will say I do Uber literally everywhere, which is probably more expensive overall, but I do not drive at all. I don't have some crazy car note. I don't have some crazy car or anything like that. So I personally,
You're not emptying the bank for the Cybertruck.
Exactly. I manage my money very well. I mean, I am an accountant. I manage my money really well. And so I avoid certain expenses that other people have so that I could put my money into other things that bring me happiness, right? Like I travel a lot and that's where a lot of my money goes and stuff like that. And I also like eating really good food. So you guys hear me having these crazy dinners and lunches, but that's that like other people will drive. I have a friend who drives a BMW and it's a fucking $80,000 car. And
some people go to the bar fucking four nights a week.
Yeah, some people go out and they get bottle service and like whatever you like to do with your money, that's fine. I'm not criticizing anybody for what they do. I buy very expensive clothes, as people know that as well. Like I really, really love expensive clothing. But everyone does whatever they want with their money. And so I think that you should enjoy yourself. But just again, I cannot say this enough. Be responsible, be reasonable. Do not crash out on this new Pokemon game. I know it's going to be hard because your friend is going to be right next to you and they're going to pull something. And this is what happens. Somebody's going to pull something next to you who's a friend of yours, or maybe even a friend of me or whatever. And you're going to get kind of jealous and you're going to have that FOMO. We all have experienced that too, where you're like, damn, I really want that. And then you're going to start dumping money. Just be careful. That's all I'm going to say.
I remember doing that IRL. Like you go to like a card shop, your friend like packs something juice and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to go buy a pack. And you get nothing. You get nothing.
Of course you get nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's cool opening, 2 packs a day. Just because like you open some packs, it's fun. You get a little rush. You get to see a card. Like, oh, I got a card. And they have crazy card. Like in terms of artworks, like the full art Charmander or like Bulbasaur. I'm still looking for full art Squirtle. It's cool. It's just really fun opening packs. I think that's something that us card game players like doing. So the fact that there's a game that's like, hey, open a pack every day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, sure. I'll open a pack of cards every day. Why not?
Yeah, I love that. I genuinely do love that. So that's pretty much what I want. I want to get that story out about me, Silverman McCabe just eating dinner.
That is so fun. I just love the idea of his mouth being full, like fucking Luffy.
Because he was not paying us that much attention, but the second Silverman said the number, he visibly became upset.
And all the while, Vinny is just rolling the dice.
Oh, Vinny thought it was hilarious, and obviously Silverman does this a lot. And I think that this is what makes his storytelling so good. He exaggerates the truth so much. One of my friends, Silverman is the funniest person in the group by far. And I think everyone who's ever met Silverman, I think we kind of all agree that he is the funniest person I've ever met and that everyone's ever met, to be honest. Like he's very fun to be around. One of my friends, Drew, said, "You're so fucking ridiculous," as we were all dying laughing, holding our stomachs. He said, "You literally just speak in hyperbole. You do not ever speak like a normal person. Everything you say is just exaggerated to the max. You literally just speak in hyperbole." And that shit, and I've always looked at him that way, is like everything he says, just take it as like, take it with a little grain of salt, because it's probably for the sake of it.
Whatever he said is 200% of the truth.
Yes, for the sake of it being funnier, he will sacrifice some integrity of what the story, what reality really was, to make it funny. And I think that shit is worth it every time, because when I tell you I've cried, because when he's made me cry so many times laughing. So good.
That is so good.
I wish I had that talent. He's very good at storytelling. I cannot wait to get him on the podcast, because honestly, like, I don't want to play it up too much, because podcasting is a different thing than just chilling with your friends.
It's completely different.
Being able to say whatever you want, uncensored, unfiltered. It's very different than, a camera's in front of you and you're kind of like in front of a mic. He's not really that kind of guy. So I'm not going to say that when he comes on a podcast, expect all these insane stories or whatnot. But just know, in reality, if you ask anyone about him, he has the best storytelling in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, and it's not close. And
just to reiterate, it is different. Like, when I do legitimately think today we are much better podcasters than we were episode 1, because the style of talking, what you got to do, it just is different. Even though I don't feel like we actively went out of our way to change anything, I just think the more you do it, the more adept you become at doing it. And even though we are just having a conversation, it's a slightly different conversation. Like, there's slightly different rules to the conversation, but
right. Yeah, I mean, so in terms of the game, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say. We had plans to also talk about the
There was a
leaks.
lot. Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of other stuff we're going to talk. We ended up talking a lot more about the game than I thought, which I'm happy about. It was really fun.
I thought that this was one of the best podcast episodes I've ever done. Honestly, I love this. Like this, because I didn't know anything, so I'm just having a actual conversation that I would be having with you. You know, if the camera wasn't on, if the recording wasn't happening.
Yeah. It's really cool. I can't wait for more cards to come out. I think there's rumor that there's going to be like a mini set either at the end of the month or like sometime in December, and then the next full set I think is going to be in January. So I'm excited. I can't wait to see what other cards end up in the game. I also just can't wait for trading because that's going to make it so much easier, even for free to play players. Like I think trading is going to benefit free to play players the most actually because it'll give them more options to complete their collections.
Yeah.
Whereas whales are just going to like spend money and open infinite packs until they get everything they want anyway. Whereas trading will benefit people that don't have a lot of money, I think, more.
I can see that. And I hope that whales don't really matter in the grand scheme of things for the game. Like I don't want them to have too much impact on like the competitive scene and stuff like that. I don't think that money should be the biggest factor in a competitive game.
Yeah. And I hope it won't. Like what I'm expecting, just like I have no proof of this. What I think is going to be the max amount of cards you can put in a deck is 2. I think it'll be you can only trade a card if you have more than 2 of it. So I think that'll be a thing. So for example, I have 3 Gengar EXs. So that third one's kind of annoying. I don't need it. And I think A, you'll need more than 2 to be able to trade it. And then B, maybe you'll have to do like what you said, trade rarity for rarity. And so I'd love to just be like, all right, I have an extra Gengar EX. I'm just going to trade Gengar EX for any of these cards. I'm missing these 4 EXs. I'll trade this Gengar for any of these 4. And then somebody online will just be like, all right, cool, I'll do that. And they'll give me Machamp or something that I'm missing for the Gengar. And it'll just help us, complete our sets.
Is there a rumor mill about upcoming stuff? All right, like I'm sure people, I don't know if you're into like looking at what people are speculating is going to happen or whatnot.
There's people speculating on different things. I tend not to pay too much attention to raw speculation. There's like leaks, and these leaks are still technically rumors because it's not proven until it happens. But like in the game's code is why people think the next full set comes out in January. I don't know all the details, but something in the code leads people to believe that the next full set is going to happen in January. So stuff like that I pay attention to, but pure speculation, I don't pay any attention.
Yeah, speculation it's fun sometimes, but people get really creative or just these ideas in their head that they assume are 100% going to happen, and they set themselves up for disappointment while also setting other people up for disappointment too.
That happens a lot. I forget what game. There was a game that happened with recently. I can't remember which one it was, but people were really building it up to like have a thing, and then what happened was still good, but people were like really mad because it wasn't what they wanted. I can't remember what it was. It might have been like Smash or something, but I can't remember what it was. I think that happens every Nintendo Direct. There's a Nintendo Direct and people get super excited about it, and then it doesn't have Smash information. Like, oh my god, waste of my time. It's like not every Nintendo Direct is about Smash Bros.
Yeah, exactly. There was a time where obviously that shit ruled the Nintendo Directs, and they were kind of synonymous with Smash Bros. But
yeah. Oh, I remember what I'm talking. It wasn't a game. This is exactly. It was the Game Awards, one of the years. I don't remember which year it was, but it was the Game Awards. And every Smash player had convinced themselves that they were going to announce the next DLC character at the Game Awards. No one said this was going to happen. Nintendo didn't say that. Like, no one said this was going to happen. But like, I remember Armada like stayed up all night, like restreaming the Game Awards.
Yeah.
And he got pissed, and he was like getting really mad at Nintendo, saying that they're like pieces of shit. He was basically saying that like they should have announced that there's not going to be a Smash announcement. And it's like, no, you don't announce not announcements. Like, you don't announce that there's not an announcement,
right? Because then that's a slippery slope too. Because once you do that once, right? What's to stop people from clamoring for every single event that's happening? PAX East, PAX West, fucking the Tokyo Game Show. I have to say we're not doing an announcement for Smash every single fucking time there's a game show?
Yeah,
no,
like that's crazy.
We're not doing that. No one told you to buy into that bullshit that you read on Reddit.
The Smash community was up in arms because they were all amped that there was going to be this Smash reveal. And then there was nothing. And then they were like getting mad at Nintendo and the Game Awards. And they were like, we never said that was going to happen. Like, y'all made that up.
Yeah, absolutely wild. Yeah, I mean, people, like I said, people get on those threads and they just start saying things that sound so good, but
saying whatever they want.
But then, it's just not real. So there's that. Do you want to talk about the leaks at all? Or do you want to like wait to talk about that in another episode? Like, how do you want to handle that?
I mean, we definitely want people to cover everything. I guess quickly, it sucks. The video I sent you, I ended up watching.
I watched it too
was like
yesterday.
It was like a brief summary. Obviously didn't go over in depth everything. Like I looked into it when it was happening, some more stuff. But that video did a funny thing because they would like talk about like, oh, this game, like here's some interesting information about this game. Here's some interesting background information that never came out. But Typhlosion has sex with a woman and like has a baby. And it's like, wait, what? And then like 5 minutes pass of them talking about like video games. They're like, and then here was internal documents that said like Rapidash married a man, and then the man murdered the Rapidash and married the Rapidash's ex-husband.
Yes.
What's going on?
They were very up and down. For people who have no fucking idea what we're talking about right now, there were somebody hacked Nintendo, I guess, or Pokemon or whatever you want to call it, and they
huge hack.
They got into the Pokemon data files that are super confidential, obviously now. They got into these data files that go back for like a decade. It has to be because there's so much shit in there. But they were able to find the names, like the code names anyway, of the next Nintendo gaming console. They were able to find the names of Pokemon games that have yet to come out, like Pokemon Gaia being one of them, that has a focus on like being outside and stuff like that, like the Earth is a big part of it, just like wilderness and all that stuff. So Pokemon Gaia, all these other Pokemon games, early designs for Pokemon that have changed drastically from when they were initial concepts. For example, Metagross, which is one of my favorite Pokemon.
Yo, that thing looked crazy.
That shit is nightmare fuel. The original Metagross looks, so you know, Metagross is like a spider, kind of like a mechanical spider looking thing, and it doesn't look like it's, honestly, Metagross has never scared me ever in my life. I never looked at the thing and was like, oh, I'm terrified of that. Well, the initial design of it looks way more, it's not metal at all. It's just a fucking alien looking thing with these evil ass eyeballs buried deep inside of like where his eyes are on the real one that we all know is kind of where the eyes are on this one, but they're like in darkness. So you don't really know what's looking at you. And it has these really aggressive looking claws that would just skewer you and kill you. It looks like something that will hunt you down at nighttime and kill you like a quiet. Have you ever seen a movie A Quiet Place? It's akin to something like that. Something alien, something that is aggressive towards humans and will shred you the fuck up if it saw you. Like just scary, nightmare fuel type shit.
Yeah, and there's a couple more of those that weren't in that video. There's like the original design of Cacturn that looks nuts, really like nightmare-y. Like there was a bunch of, I think Gen 3, there's a bunch of leaked designs for when Gen 3 was coming out that have these crazy looking designs, like Metagross and Cacturn and some other things. And there's a bunch of other leaks. There's a bunch of really weird lore about Pokemon doing weird shit with humans. But there's also some cool lore. Like the Arceus shit was crazy. And what's cool is that there's remnants of that lore still in the game. There's like, they talk about the original sin and like the Genesis from the Bible.
Yeah, the Bible was confirmed to be canon in the Pokemon world. Like the Bible that we all know is a real thing in the Pokemon world.
There's this thing that they do with Arceus where it's like Arceus was born from like this egg, and like this egg was like the universe, and like Arceus was in an egg, and like he hatches out of the egg, and then the fragments of the egg, like the pieces of the egg, turned into these Titans. And then the Titans tried to kill Arceus, and then Arceus fought all the Titans and eventually defeated them all. And then like from there, he used like the Titans' corpses to create the God of Time and the God of Space, which is like Palkia and Dialga and like various other things.
Yeah.
And there is, in Pokemon, there's like these plates. And when you attach a plate to Arceus, it changes what type he is. So Arceus is normal, and he could be Steel or Dragon or Grass or whatever, depending on what plate is on him. And the plates have these really weird descriptions. And I remember one of them, it says like the shattered fragments of like of a Titan or something like that. Like one of the plates in the game says that, but there's no additional lore to fully explain that. And that's like lore that was like in the back house of Pokemon or whatever. Then when you encounter Arceus in Heart Gold Soul Silver, it like shows this huge like celestial map, like this alchemy circle, like from Full Metal Alchemist. It shows like this alchemy circle, and then it shows like not video game. It shows like real footage of like buildings and beaches and waves and wilderness, like real actual footage. This happens in game.
What?
And it's like all this crazy shit, and there's like an alchemy circle, and then it like these drums are playing, and that leads into you encountering Arceus. It's so fucking epic. But for so long, people are like, "What the hell is that? Like, what's the point? Like, why?" In these internal documents, that alchemy circle got revealed of being like this cosmology of the legends, and like Arceus is in the middle, and then all of the legends like Ho-Oh and Lugia and Groudon and Kyogre and Rayquaza, and like how they fit into the cosmology and what they do for like the universe of Pokemon is like each of these different pieces on this alchemy circle that like is super in depth, and like these Pokemon files got leaked. It's really fucking interesting and just really cool. That's never been public information.
Yeah, some of it is very weird, and some of it is really cool. Like what Kenny said, the stuff where people are out here like fucking Tangelas and all that. I'll
That
pass.
shit's weird.
Like, just going out to a beach and picking up a Tangela and just fucking it is not exactly like
That's a real story.
what I would
He's not making it up.
Like that's just probably not what you want. But you know the stuff about Arceus is dope. Tangela not so much. Or poor Tangela. I don't. I don't really know what to say, because as I watched the video and as I did a little bit more diving into it, like I was wondering. So I saw this meme last month about Typhlosion. I had no idea.
And I tried to ignore it as long as I could.
Me
And then
too.
I started researching this leak. I didn't know they were connected. So I started researching the leak, and then I was like, oh God, this is where it's from.
Yeah, I had no idea that Typhlosion was on all bullshit. So I've been seeing that meme all month, and now Kenny randomly was like, hey, there's these Pokemon leaks that came out. Do you know anything about it? I was like, nope, haven't heard of, haven't researched it, don't know anything about it. He sent me a video that's a summary of it. It's an 18-minute video, and yeah, it ended up just being like a lot of random stuff, a lot of ups and downs. The highs were ridiculous and the lows were ridiculous. So it's worth watching. I think that the guy who does that video did a good job of kind of edging you on some of that stuff. For example, there's this one part he gets to where he shows the backs of a lot of Pokemon. Like, you know how in game, when you're looking at a Pokemon that you're fighting, you're seeing the front of it. But then when you're using a Pokemon, you see the back of the Pokemon. And he was saying that there's early concept art for a lot of Pokemon where you see the backs of them and the fronts of them or whatever that was different than what we actually got in the game. And he's like, I'm going to you could pause it here to like take a look at this image. And it was like maybe 50 Pokemon on this image, front and backs of them.
And there's even more. There's even more than that.
Oh, of course. He said this is only a couple of them, but I assume that there's going to be a lot of phallic shit there and a lot of like innuendo and just inside messages type of thing. So I actually paused the video and I was staring at a lot of it and trying to see what I could make of it.
There's a lot of crazy shit. They also, in the early parts of the leak, there was a lot of information about the Pokemon games that aren't out yet. And then the guys who were leaking stopped releasing that information and said they weren't. Like, the one guy says that he has a fully playable, like, the next Pokemon game, he has a playable version of it, like, on his computer, and he's able to play it. It's not completely finished, but it's mostly finished outside of, like, the bug fixes that need to be done to it.
Mm-hmm.
But he's saying, like, he's not going to release that onto the internet. There's also, unfortunately, a lot of internal documents that did come out that have employees, like, actual full names and, like, email correspondence between different people. Like, there's email correspondence between, like, the video game side of the company and the anime side of the company, and then, like, having arguments and stuff about certain things. Like, there's a lot of, like, crazy emails that came out that have, like, you know, like I said, people's full names on it that
I did not know
people wish didn't happen, because it's like, you just don't need to leak that part. But apparently what happened is they didn't mean to leak that. There were like terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of information initially that they just kind of released on the internet without vetting all of it. So then other people started going through it and finding stuff that the people that initially leaked it didn't even know was there.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. I don't like when you know, companies are one thing. I usually don't really care for companies as like I'm not, you won't really see me out here caping for companies too often or anything like that. Like that's just not my thing. I'll play devil's advocate just to say from a business perspective, I understand. But I'm always on the side of the people when it comes to shit like that. And so that being said, yeah, I don't like when employees of companies fall under the microscope of the internet because leaks and stuff like that. It's just not fair to them, especially if you're just doing your job, right? Like, you know, no one wants to get jigsawed where because you work for an insurance company, you end up in a fucking shotgun ring around the rosy.
Fuck?
Yeah, like why are you about to be shot by a guy because he won't skewer his hands or whatever just because you work for an insurance company? Like that is absolutely, you're literally doing your job and you're getting punished because you fucking sell insurance, and insurance is obviously a scam. We all get that, but like I don't think that people who sell insurance should die. Yeah,
right. Like I just needed a job. I needed to buy food for my kids.
So yeah, that type of thing is really unfortunate because obviously certain people just have no self-control. They're going to go and antagonize these people. They know who they are now. They're going to antagonize these people, regardless of if this person was in the right or wrong on these emails. Let's say this person was being a complete dickhead or a douchebag or whatever. Still not the point. It's a fucking work email. Like, just stop. So
yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, there was a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of unfortunate stuff. There's some really cool like Pokemon designs that never came to be that I would love to see happen in the future. And then there's some other just random shit. There's just lots of up and downs. I'm real good on like, I was watching it with Connie, and it's funny because like 5 minutes would pass and then it would just be like, oh, and then this Pokemon had sex with a human, and
There was a lot of that.
after like the third time, she was like, "What is happening?" She was like, "Can we fire all of these people?"
Yeah, like
Who's writing these design documents that like a man went to a beach and found an octillery, and him and the octillery made it, and then he threw the octillery back into the ocean, and then he would have dreams at night with the octillery telling him that it's okay to have sex with octillery. It's like, what the fuck is happening?
That's an actual story verbatim. Like verbatim, what Kenny just said. You didn't miss a single part of that. He just told you exactly what the story was, verbatim. So yeah, I don't really know why they're like this. The people who wrote these stories, but it is what it is. It's out there now into the world. We'll never be able to unsee it, I guess. But yeah, new Pokemon games should be coming out, and a new Switch or whatever the next generation of Nintendo console. I can't wait for 2025. A lot of things are happening in 2025. Monster Hunter is just one of them. There's going to be a lot of shit. Maybe an announcement for another God of War. Yeah, I'm excited for next year. I'm very excited for next year. I think that's pretty much everything I'd say. Unless you have something else to bring up, Kenny, we can kind of wrap.
I mean, I think that's mostly everything. I think we talked a lot about the Pokemon card game. We talked a little bit about the leaks, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, we covered pretty much everything. We did a lot. Yeah, we really went into detail on that Pokemon game, which I'm not mad at all because I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Same. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, I can't wait to do more videos on it and stuff. I don't know if by the time this podcast comes out, I don't know when this is scheduled to come out. I don't know what videos will be out when and where, but yeah, because we're ahead of. Yeah, Patreon gets everything early. So if you want to hear the episodes faster than everyone else, you need to join our Patreon at the party member or higher tier, and you will get episodes early. That is an actual thing that happens every single week. And sometimes we give them a lot before everyone else catches up. Usually episodes come out once a week on Thursday for the public, like on Spotify and everything like that, Apple Podcasts. But Patreon gets that shit weeks early sometimes. Like a lot of episodes early on Patreon. A lot of times it's crazy. Also, just in general, we're trying to hit a goal of getting 200 patrons. So if you're listening and you're just like, you know what, I want to help them, support whatever. We're trying to hit 200 patrons, and as like a celebration of that, when we do, we're going to host a big Yu-Gi-Oh tournament for Edison format where we'll be putting a $1,000 prize pool on it. So yeah, we're trying to get to 200 patrons. So if you want to help us get there, I'd very much appreciate it. Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. And with that being said, why don't we give a shout out to the people who are on our Patreon? So if you're at the party member higher tier, we have Coliseum of Gladiators 2025, Leon Quest Xavier, This Ain't God, This is Stanley Earl, Grandmaster of the Bottom Tables, Y'all Gonna Learn to Stop Playing With Us, Henry Reynolds, First to Home, Did That Seem Lucky to You, My B, Dallas Bailey, KJ, The Flow with Doc and Ziggy, According to Meta AI, Sarah Maria, Alex Ahern, FT Campa, Kyle Batelho, I'll Let You Suckle My Titties, Sugal, Vicky Vendeman, Elijah Barfall, Tyler Jadeo, Lovey the Mega Monarch, Peacock D Enraged of the Edison Club, Janitor 215, Joshua Carroll, Eric Chai, Brian Moore, Behind the Duel This Podcast with Ty and Justin, Mike and John, and then we have Free Tim Bailey's Glazed Smooth Butt, 15 Fingers Billy Break, Frozen Go Dojo, B-Dog23, Alkaheist, Hershey Bar, Phil and Poister, Romeo Snyder of Team Hugh, Tyler Frasher, Sasha Egger, Daniel Anderson, Doroa, Chicken Toaster Strudel, Jordan Eastman, Robert Light, Mike, Kazi95, Clanger, Obese Corgi, Pavinci, Travis Lurs, Harsh Kumar, HT19, Joel Cruz, Gregory, Cal Maring, Juan Ambry, Limp Biscuit Jigsaw is Coming, Mike and John, Blue Dewey, Marcel, Water Vortex, Kyle Crudeau, Frago, Anthony Japov, and Michael Zeng. Again, thank you guys so much for your support. We really appreciate that. Hopefully we can reach our goal of reaching 200 patrons on our Patreon so that we can launch that $1,000 tournament. I assume that will be in 2025, probably first quarter of 2025 is what I'm projecting. And that'll be awesome to just do. I'm going to obviously stream it. We'll be on stream having fun. And I do also plan to stream some of the tournaments coming up. Like I know that there's Edison Worlds and stuff like that in December for format libraries version of it. I know that there's the RBET Rulers one, but obviously Keegan's going to be streaming that. But the Edison format library one, I'll be streaming that. So I did a good job with everyone for Peak of the Beak, the last one that we just had. We had like at one point over 225 people watching at once, which is the peak that any of the live streams have ever had. So that was awesome to have that many people joining. So please come out on that Saturday and Sunday for Edison Worlds, right? Like that's going to be awesome to have. And I look forward to doing that. Anaheim is also in the first week of December.
So I'll be in Anaheim. So if you want to meet me, if you haven't met me before, or whatever, you want me to sign cards, take pictures, whatever, I'm down. I do that stuff at every single event I've gone to this year. It's been a great joy this year traveling to everything and just seeing a bunch of fans of the show and fans of me and Kenny and stuff like that. It's awesome. We appreciate you guys a lot. So yeah, but as I always say, do the things that make you happy, including enjoying Pokemon in all of its many different versions. You know, Pokemon
There's
comes in a lot of different ways to package Pokemon, but most of them are actually just fucking amazing. Even if they are out here fucking Tangelas. And with that being said, guys, peace.
Peace.